No.
Because men are useless.
This headline from The Hill, it caught my eye. Most young men are single. Most young women are not.
Young men have fallen faster than any demographic in America over the last 40 years.
It's a different world now. Like, we don't need men the way that they used to.
Nobody needs men!
The future is female.
Men and women are drifting further apart, and society is crumbling because of it.
A fascinating debate has broken out about the value of marriage.
You've kind of got the trad con versus red pill thing.
This men's rights crowd that sometimes just goes too far the other way.
You need to stop acting like grown boys and infants and actually become men.
Marriage is a bond, and it's a sacred bond.
It's a machine designed to extract resources from you.
Now many of the red-pilled have taken the position that it's bad for men to get married.
Hannah Pearl Davis, or just Pearly things.
One of the most controversial faces in all of the internet.
She goes on to say that marriage is a terrible deal for men.
Because if me and you were in a business contract, you would never sign a contract where I am paid to leave.
Gee, what could go wrong there?
74% or something of divorces are initiated by women. Men have everything to lose, primarily their own children.
Men get killed by the courts and by divorce laws.
I had no idea that courts of family law were courts of equity, not courts of law.
Because in family court, you don't need evidence to accuse someone of abuse. You need no evidence. When you guys say get married young, a lot of these men don't know what they're signing up for, and you're not going to be there when their entire life falls apart. I interview them on the other side.
I didn't meet my son until he was 15 months old.
How much did you spend trying to get him back?
On legal fees alone was about $200,000.
Before you know it, you're homeless. You're literally just thrown out onto the street.
We absolutely reinforce bad behavior from women.
Wives are taught to leave their husbands, and then daughters grow up without their fathers.
Family is the foundation of society.
Every problem in society comes from single mother homes.
A lot of women will just chase this negative rabbit hole of happiness, endless happiness.
Feminism's biggest failures is it lies to women. We tell women to date as many guys as possible. We tell them to put off family into marriage.
You are allowed to leave your perfect husband. You are allowed to end a relationship with a really great boyfriend.
Oh, freeze your ex, have an abortion. What? You're evil.
I don't think there's anything else in life that we actually ever go into preparing to fail.
Right.
Like if you have the mentality of this is going to go wrong and be pessimistic, naturally the outcome is going to be that it's going to fail anyway. Yeah. It's self-sabotage. And that's the thing, like women are so willing to leave marriages because they're not happy. This is not about happiness. The most important thing is the children. And the problem is we have a modern society where it's me, my feelings, leave when I feel like it, instead of doing what's best for the kids.
This myth that we live in an age of male privilege. Where's my male privilege?
They think, well, men have all the rights. They have all the power.
Privileged patriarchal system that we have.
Why doesn't our society care about men's rights?
I have no friends.
No wife and no social life.
Men are alone in this situation. Men are homeless. Men are thinking about eating guns.
I've seen so many men on the brink of suicide and they didn't do anything wrong.
How are you equal if the men are the ones that have to fight and die to defend the country? The men are the ones that build and maintain all the infrastructure.
Women are helplessly dependent upon men.
The so-called deaths of despair from suicide, overdose, or alcohol, 3 times higher among men than among women.
Culture is telling men you are no good.
You got to get your act together.
I think men have failed themselves.
What kind of a man are you? What kind of a woman are you going to attract?
If men are in trouble, so are women.
Everybody knows this is a huge problem, but nobody wants to admit it.
Every single woman at the table said they wanted a man.
500K.
500K. 300K.
200K.
Am I crazy?
Everything is really set up against you to fail as a man.
If men make less than women, women don't want to marry them.
So you know who wants more economically and emotionally viable men? Women.
I don't want to be an independent woman anymore.
I don't want to be a strong, independent woman.
I'm over it.
When is it going to be my turn?
Where are we meeting the men that don't stop?
I can't keep having these same conversations.
The only simp here is you, Pearl. You simp for men.
I think you said for women.
She's a provocateur. She says stupid stuff, but Pearl is right about this.
It's already happening. It's just not out in the open yet.
Now it's just hookup culture is going to be our fairy tale ending because men don't want a wife and women can't find a husband. The future, if everybody follows your path, is there is no future.
We go into population decline, and our economy goes into decline.
Civilization will crumble.
The American story does not end well. This is an existential crisis, failing young men.
All right, what up, guys?
guys, welcome to another episode here of Pearl Daily here on the Audacity Network today. We do have a special guest coming on the channel, but I'm going to do a couple of announcements and ground rules first. So the first is that we are raising money for this divorce documentary. As you guys know, the past year and a half, I've been working on a documentary on divorce, but unfortunately, women do not want this message to get out. So what they have done is they have demonetized me, kicked me off of TikTok 8 times. I've gone through 3 Instagram, and I recently got remonetized on YouTube, but this did set us back a little bit, so we are raising money. Our goal is to get to $100,000 in order to finish the documentary. That's bare minimum. The price is set to $1 million. Really, that's just if we can get a Netflix grade one, but we can do it with 100K. We're at 25K, so thank you all for the donations. The second way you can support the channel is to join our invite-only members community. This is where I bring on these smart, intelligent, famous, and non-famous men to teach you guys how to improve your love lives, how to make it on YouTube, how to make more money, basically any kind of self-improvement that you want to do. Okay, so next, can you guys flash me the Zoom first? Don't put her on quite yet, because I just want to make sure it's working before I bring her on and that I can see it okay on the TV. If not, I need to press a button.
Can you see me?
I can't.
Hello.
1 second. Hi, Lila. 1 second.
Hi.
I'm going to fix one thing and then I'll be back, okay? It's
All
just
good.
me in
All
here,
good.
so I got to hold on.
All good. Wrong side.
I don't know what it is, guys. It was working earlier, but it's okay. I can just look in the camera. All right. How are you, Lila?
I'm good, Pearl. How are you?
I'm good. So I wanted to start.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. I was going to give you your intro. Is that all right?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So Lila Rose, guys, president of Live Action, a pro-life nonprofit. She's got almost 300,000 subscribers and runs a pro-life YouTube channel. Did I miss anything, Lila?
Thank you. That sounds good. Thanks, Pearl.
Okay, cool. So thanks for coming on. I know we went back and forth a little bit on Twitter, but I do enjoy having conversations with people that we have different ideas on. So I do appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate that. And I thank you for being willing to dialogue with me and grateful for that. And thanks for having me on.
Cool. So I guess I wanted to flesh out a little bit of your ideas on different topics that maybe have different points of view on. So I wanted to start with abortion. So I wanted to see what your stance is on abortion.
Sure. Well, abortion, and we'll define it quickly because there's sometimes some media confusion that they try to throw confusion into the topic. But abortion is the direct and intentional killing of a baby. It's always wrong. And that's because it's always wrong to kill an innocent human being, and a child in the womb is an innocent human being. So this is the greatest human rights issue that we're facing, I believe, as a country. There's 3,000 babies killed every single day by abortion. It's devastating our entire social fabric. There's 1 million babies killed every single year. And this has been a mission for me since, teen years, basically, since I was a kid. Thankfully, our movement has grown, but we have a ton of work to do because there's a lot of people who are blind on this issue, and there's a lot of laws that we need to change to protect children and to create a culture of life.
So what laws would you want to change?
Well, I think first off, there should be complete abortion bans. So there needs to be complete abolition of abortion and complete legal protection for the preborn child. That's the most important law. And then I think there's also public policies we could do to make America a friendlier place for families. more tax credits and cash, quite frankly, cash money given directly to families who have children so that it's easier to raise families. So there's a lot of pro-life positive public policy. But the biggest thing is we need to protect babies in the womb from abortion.
Okay. So when it comes to enforcing that, do you think that women should be put in jail who have abortions?
I think that, yeah, if somebody is intentionally, willfully, with full knowledge, pursuing the crime of killing the baby, whether that's a woman or she's someone else outside of her, it's a man who's pushing that on her, another woman, the abortionist obviously committing the act, there should be criminal penalties for that.
Okay. And so we would agree then life in prison, similar to like aborting an adult, we would agree?
I mean, I think it's going to depend on
killing an adult. My bad. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. I think it depends. I mean, every state has different kinds of homicide laws, and there's different penalties depending on different circumstances, different degrees of murder. So I think it'll depend. I mean, right now, for example, if you commit infanticide, you kill a newborn baby, right? And you do it with full intent and full knowledge. There wasn't some sort of mental health issue, right? You could get a very significant prison sentence. And I think we need to have justice like that to protect life and to make sure we're valuing life in our laws. So I think it's going to depend case by case, but overall, yes, of course we should have legal protections, and that would include penalties for those that willfully, intentionally, with full knowledge, there's not some like mental health issue or coercion issue going on. That I think that is an important part of our legal system, should be a part of our legal system. What is
a coercion issue?
Well, so a lot of abortions, unfortunately, there's a coercive aspect where, and this is reporting that we've done at Live Action now for over a decade, where especially if there's a situation of sexual abuse or, an abusive relationship, generally speaking, sometimes there's going to be a partner, a man involved, usually not a husband, as a boyfriend, who is pushing for that abortion. And so if there's, a woman who's basically being coerced into having that abortion, she's being threatened that, I'm going to kill you if you don't do this. She's being, driven to the abortion clinic, kicking and screaming, things like that. Then, of course, when you're looking at abortion, pro-life laws, there should be penalties for that, for coercing someone into having an abortion. And those different studies that have been done, it's about up to a third of women report that they felt coerced into having their abortion. And there's a lot of cases of this, boyfriends throwing abortion drugs into the girlfriend's drink, saying she has to have the abortion. She, has an abortion because the pills were put in her drink. Those sorts of really tragic situations. And that is an element of abortion today.
Right, but
in
there's
America.
no law that a man could put a gun to a woman's head and make her get an abortion. It's 100% her choice at the end of the day. Outside of throwing something in her drink, right? Which is the equivalent of like but outside of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's not a law you're saying there's not a law that says the man gets to decide. That's true. Like in today's, today, just to be clear, I mean, on the flip side, the coercion can go the other direction, right? So the man could be coercing the woman to have the abortion. The woman could be coercing the man that I'm going to have this abortion whether you like it or not. And that also tragically happens horribly. Men have no rights when it comes to protecting their baby. So you can be a man today, the girlfriend's pregnant with your child, you have no rights to protect that child. She goes and have an abortion. You don't even have to have knowledge of it. That also tragically happens. Yeah. It's horrific.
And I totally agree. But I think where I would have a difference of opinion is I think that's just a get out of jail free card that women use when they don't want to take accountability for the choice that they made. It's really easy
what
to
is
say.
What is a get out of jail free card? What are you talking about specifically?
So what I've noticed with traditional conservatives and was whenever women do something terrible, they have a tendency to blame the men when they can. And so I think it's bullshit that women can say, I was coerced into something, when women have every right under the law. Like, there's no way a man can put a gun to a woman's head without severe consequences and making her get an abortion. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
so
I think we agree that of course it should be illegal, and it is largely speaking to physically harm someone, outside of the womb anyway. It's not a baby on the womb. They're up for being killed, which is horrific, right? But yeah, I mean, technically, if a woman is, physically dragged to an abortion clinic or threatened, she could, probably have a legal case against him. And it would be great if she could pursue that. They don't always get pursued, so that's a problem. But the reality is abortion involves coercion often on one or the other side. And that's another element of just us allowing the killing of babies in this country. And that anybody has a consent to kill the baby is wrong. No one should have that right to kill. There's no right to kill, and nobody should be pressuring anybody into an abortion. So I think we're aligned on that.
No, I don't.
I hope we're aligned on that.
I don't know.
Do you agree? I'm just curious if you agree with that.
And I'll get into it, but I don't think like necessarily, right? Because, okay, so if I wanted to get an abortion, I would never, right? I don't believe in it. Yeah, personally wouldn't. But let's say tomorrow I change my mind and I want one. What can my boyfriend, can he legally stop me?
No, and that's part of the that's part of the horror of this, right?
Right.
I mean, we just did a panel.
But the other way around, like if he wanted me to get one and I wanted to have the kid, he can't do anything.
Well, unfortunately, in many cases, there are coercive situations where there's abuse and they do try to do something. So that does happen. You could say it's technically illegal. Like she could call the cops and say, get him out of here. But in a lot of domestic abuse situations, even calling the cops doesn't always work for multiple reasons. There's a lot of complexity there. So it's just another sad, dark part of our culture today, unfortunately.
But how? Like how is calling the cops not a solution?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much
yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how much you've kind of looked into Live Action News reports on some of these cases, right? And so I don't know how much you might look into it, but in cases where there's sort of this, there could be overt pressure, which would be, I want to kill you if you don't have this abortion, right? Or there's a sexual abuse victim, like a young girl, which we've documented this in multiple cases. There's actually court cases of like 12 and 13-year-old girls who their stepfather or their soccer coach got them pregnant, drove them to the abortion clinic to get the abortion. That was part of continuing the cycle of abuse.
Underage is a different conversation, but I'm talking about of age. So like 18
so
plus.
I'm not sure where you're going with this or what you're trying to, what you're trying, how we might disagree. Do you think we disagree on something I've said or?
Yeah, because
what do you disagree on?
I'm saying I disagree with saying that a woman can be coerced into getting an abortion. I disagree.
Okay.
Because the women have the police on their side and we have all of the laws are on our side. So there's nothing that a man can, he can tell you to go get one, but you can say no, F you and not. So
yes, and I would encourage every woman in a city. I hear what you're saying, Pearl, and I do think the kind of potential language of empowerment you're using of like, ladies, like if you're feeling pressure, like buck it, like forget it. Like this guy has no power over you. You stand up and fight for the life of your baby. That is one of the prevailing messages of live action for women, whether it's a boyfriend, whether it's their parents, whether it's the doubts in the back of their mind that are thinking, oh, I need this abortion, otherwise my life is over, whatever it is. No, don't listen to that voice. Don't listen to that pressure. You have the power to choose life. You have the power to fight for your baby. So yeah, I agree with you that should be the ultimate message to women. We should fight for our babies and love them. And we have the ability to do that. We have the ability to do that now. Any woman can do that.
Yeah, I think where we disagree is I watch what women do, not what they say. And so just because a woman says she was feeling a certain way, that doesn't mean she's telling the truth. It's like anyone can feel
I mean, that's
coerced,
certainly possible for some women, yes.
A lot of women, Yeah,
I mean, it depends on the women you talk to. But yeah, there's going to be some women who, may feel a certain way and not act by their feelings, or, certainly people can blame other people for their actions. I think that can happen. So I know that, from what I know of your content, I know you say, you have a lot of broad sweeping statements about, men at large or women at large. And, women kind of are, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, and certainly there are bad actors out there doing bad things. So I'm not going to act like there aren't.
Okay. Yeah. So the next question I have is, what is your timeline on when you think abortion will be banned?
So our work on this in this fight, I believe it will be within our lifetime for sure. I think that even under this current administration, we were very disappointed that, there's some progress being made, but the Republican Party right now has made a lot of compromises on this. So we have to work to reestablish protection of life in the Republican Party and obviously convince the Democrat Party to fight for life. That's a big fight right there because most Democrats are pro-abortion. But I do think that there are, everyday little shifts happening. People, when they learn about abortion, when they learn about the evil of it, there is a lot of conversions that are happening. So that's the focus of live actions work primarily more than public policy even is changing hearts and minds. And it's a difficult task, of course, Pearl, because I mean, as I'm sure you've seen, there's a lot of toxicity in our culture today. There's a lot of lies. People, post-sexual revolution, I think people are just very damaged. And so we've come to accept abortion as this normal thing. And we've also come to accept sex outside of marriage and sex outside of a loving lifelong commitment as normal. Like, oh yeah, of course people hook up. Of course that's normal. That's sort of a prevailing societal attitude today. And that's what leads to abortion, right? Because people think, oh, I'm going to have sex without consequences. I can do what I want. And then of course, sex can lead to new life, even with contraception. And that's what happens again and again. And that's why we have 3,000 babies killed every day. That is the backup contraception today, abortion. Yeah. So that's, this is the kind of the larger societal issue. And so anyways, back to your question of, are we going to ban abortion? I believe we will. It is going to happen, but there's a lot of work we need to do to change hearts and minds and to change really how we operate as a society, where we, instead of looking at sex as cheap, the hookup culture as the way to go, we celebrate marriage and say, marriage is a good thing, and sex belongs within marriage, and children are gifts, they're blessings. And
would you agree that would you agree it's a losing cause? That when women have aborted when women have aborted an eighth of the world population, an eighth, like 1 out of 8 people, like the most dangerous place you can be is in your mother's womb.
Yes, it's horrific.
Horrible. So horrific. Like, wouldn't you say,
I agree.
Wouldn't you say it's a losing cause?
No, I don't think it's a losing cause at all. And I see people change on this issue. I see former abortionists become passionately pro-life and start crusading for pro-life laws. I see women who've had abortions.
They do it when it's convenient. See, that's the...
I disagree with that. So, I don't think it's convenient for them. No, they sacrifice a lot. But
no, I've seen the one lady that and this is just what I see tend to happen. And I think it really detracts. You might have good intentions, right? But I think it often detracts from the message. Is, it's very convenient to say after you've aborted. Like, I think there's one woman, she aborted 2 kids and then became like a speaker. And I'm just thinking it's very convenient that now that you can make money as a pro-life speaker, that you're pro-life. And I just see that pattern where a lot of people, it's very convenient when they choose to be pro-life. It could be a true change of heart. It's possible, but go ahead.
Yeah, I totally disagree. I think today it actually is inconvenient, more than convenient, to be pro-life because there's so much societal infrastructure and pressure to actually be pro-abortion. So I think it's not like, being pro-life, we're working on making pro-life mainstream. I think we've made actually a lot of progress, Pearl, which I'm proud of. There's a lot more work to do. 3,000 babies dying every day is an emergency of the greatest level.
Plan B is over the counter now. Like, I don't know if there's been... Like, in my lifetime, I would say in the past 10 years, it's become easy. I mean, I know there was Roe versus Wade. I'm sure you're going to say that. But even so, I mean, I've been to some of these feminist, conventions. They ship the abortion stuff in the mail. You can get Plan B over the counter. Like, if you think Plan B is abortion, I don't really see any progress at all.
Well, and if you're speaking about the abortion pill, that is now over half of abortions, and that can be shipped by mail because we don't have regulations, and the pill is even on the market. I mean, the fact that the abortion pill is on the market, that happened under Clinton in the 1990s, and then under Biden, they took off all the regulations, and now you can literally order an abortion pill in the mail. Yeah, that's horrific, and that's only going to, that leads to the normalization of, it's just a pill. It's not just a pill, by the way.
It's
one out of every 24.
Yeah.
1 out of every 24 women who take the abortion pill end up in the emergency room. 1 out of every 10 of them have serious complications, and 100% of those babies virtually are being murdered. Right. So it's a huge issue, but I don't think it's convenient. Just back to what you're saying originally, I don't think it's somehow convenient to go out there and be a pro-life speaker like many women are and many men are, quite frankly. I think it's a beautiful work that they do. And I wish there were more people out there advocating for life.
I disagree because I see YouTube numbers. Like, I know what you guys get paid to speak at a lot of these places. I'm and maybe I'm off by 10, 20%, but it's good money. And a lot of them are getting paid very well. So
yeah, well,
I think it's you know?
Yeah, I just wouldn't say, I think it's one thing to pay people for, you know, work and they're giving a speech or things like that. But, you know, the people that I know in the pro-life movement, they're not doing this because, oh, this is my way to make all this money. They're doing this because they are passionate about saving lives. And thankfully, again, there's a lot of beautiful work being done. I mean, I think about the Pregnancy Resource Care Center movement, thousands of pregnancy resource centers across the country, more than Planned Parenthoods, more than abortion clinics. They don't get taxpayer dollars. They're not the ones like Planned Parenthood getting, you know, $800 million a year from taxpayers, and they're literally saving lives every day in our communities. They don't have a big marketing budget the way that Planned Parenthood does. Planned Parenthood has like hundreds of millions of dollars to lie to people and spend on marketing.
You don't have to convince me that pro-life is like a good, or abortion's wrong. I think what I'm doing, Pearl, is I don't want to discourage people from joining the pro-life movement. And I would say, I think we need more professional people in the pro-life movement who are advancing the cause. Planned Parenthood has, you know, a tremendous amount of money that they're investing professionally in developing the pro-abortion lobby. So I would argue we need actually more resources in the pro-life movement. We need more people who are professionally engaged in the pro-life movement in order to advance the cause of the unborn. Right, but the challenge is we see this
abortion,
as a
abolition,
losing,
and changing hearts and minds.
The challenge is most people see this as a losing cause. Like nobody really sees the pro-life movement as having really won much in the past 50 years. Well, and
listen,
I would say, I would say a lot of people that hypothetically could or would be, you know, when you say like, oh, it'll maybe be banned in our I do believe it'll be banned in our lifetime. It's like, it's kind of like, you know, if you have an employee and you're like, when is this project going to get done? And they're like, well, maybe in our lifetime. You're like, well, I don't know if you're winning, right? And you know, it's one thing to like, obviously you're going to list the stats or what, you know, give anecdotal stories. But when I look outside, you know, 1 out of 3 women have had an abortion, and we're getting pills in the mail now. And I think it's disgusting, but I just see it as a losing like I see it as you guys lost.
Well, here's a few things to consider, Pearl, hopefully to encourage you. So first of all, there are 12 states that have banned abortion. That's a big deal. In 12 states, it is illegal to kill a baby. And that is huge progress. And they reported that after Roe v. Wade fell, another huge victory. Just 3 years ago, Roe v. Wade was overruled. Now we have, you know, the opportunity to protect life. That's a huge opportunity. There were 40,000 more babies born the next year than the year prior that otherwise would have been killed if abortion hadn't been made illegal. So lives are being saved on a daily basis because of pro-life laws. And we have a lot more work to do, but that is a good thing that we have those pro-life laws.
They looked into that though, and they saw that women are going to other states to get the abortion, and Plan B sales are going up. I just don't see a baby boom coming anytime soon. If I see the birth rate going down, I see if abortion decreases, I looked into this, Plan B increases. So
I think you're talking about the abortion pill, right? You're saying there's more abortion pills.
Well, there's Plan B, and then there's the abortion pill. I believe those are,
they're different things. Yeah. So here's the thing. I hear what you're saying. And yes, there is, you could call it like the black market. And this is going to happen even after abortion is banned. You know, when we ban something like murder, fraud, rape, whatever, sometimes the bad thing still happens to some degree, right? So I'm not going to say, oh, it's possible to make sure that no one ever commits any sin again. That's not possible, right? In this life, you know, before one day, hopefully on our journey to heaven, we can be perfected, you know, by God's grace, right? But we can fight towards justice, and we should fight towards justice for our laws in our society. And in Texas, as an example, Texas banned abortion. And the birth rate did go up in Texas, Pearl, despite the fact that, yes, some women went out of state. You know, my state of California, horrifically.
By how much?
Was saying,
like 1 to what?
I think the number was around 40,000 more live births. No, I meant
one kid per, because we're at like 1 point something for the birth rate. So what, to 1.8?
The birth rate is very low. It's below replacement rate. But my point is, lives are being saved.
Yeah,
that's my point.
And
that's a good thing. We should celebrate every single one of those lives.
And I'm not saying that's a bad, you know, I'm all for it, but you have to understand that still sounds like a losing cause to me. Like, it doesn't sound like you guys are winning.
Here's another perspective for you. Okay. So throughout human history, and certainly in American history, there have been a number of injustices or abuses, right? And I remember studying the history of social reform to look at different injustices. Like, let's look at slavery as an example in America. There were a lot of people. Slavery was deeply embedded in at least, the entire southern part of America, right? It was a core part of the economy. It was a core part of the culture. People thought it was normal. People thought there's no way we're going to eradicate slavery. There is no way. And the abolitionists at the time were told that as much. They said, there's no way you're going to solve this problem. There's a lot of, reasons that they had for that we could get into. It doesn't matter. The point is, they said there's no way. And people said, we're going to make a way. We're going to fight for this, even if it's difficult, even if people tell us it's, it's not going to happen. We're going to believe that it can happen. And we're going to work to, change hearts and minds. We're going to work to protect life ultimately. And in the end, yes, through a lot of, yes, there was a horrific civil war, but in the end, we were able to eradicate slavery, later on eradicate Jim Crow. That took time. It took a lot of
what the difference was then? You know what the difference was then, though, right?
It was successful.
Do you know what the difference was then, right?
Sorry, can you say one more time? Do you know what the difference is?
Yeah, you know what the difference was back then.
Well, how do you see the difference?
Women didn't vote. Women have too much power.
I don't think that's the reason we had slavery, because women didn't vote.
No, I'm saying men have a tendency to have moral. Could you not? You're on my show. You gotta let me talk.
Are you saying that women? Just to make sure I'm tracking your.
I'm saying that men have a tendency, and not all. I'm on YouTube, so I have to say not all. But men have a tendency to do the right thing, where women have a tendency to do the wrong thing. And so now that women have had all this voting power the last 100 years, I mean, really, abortion's gone up, promiscuity's gone up, and the family unit's gone down. So I just could not see something that is so moral being passed in my lifetime, because women are the primary voting bloc. And as you said earlier, Democrats and Republicans, they both have to cater to women. That's the challenge we're going to have. And that's why what I'm not saying is that the pro-life movement is bad or wrong, or that even, but I do see them as ineffective and a losing cause. I think Roe versus Wade was the last victory they'll really have in our lifetime. And I also believe that we really have better things to worry about because it's been so ineffective.
Yeah, I just totally disagree. I think every life saved is worth celebrating, and we're saving more as we go. And this thing about women voting and, that's led to all the problems. I mean, slavery existed in America before women could vote. So I'm not sure your argument follows that, before women voted, everything was hunky-dory in the U.S.
No, I didn't say that. So the argument is that men will do something moral even at the cost of themselves. So even like they will vote or pass something that is morally right, even if it's at a cost to themselves at times. Women are not the same way. They vote very selfishly. And abortion gives women power over who is born. So they're just never going to give that up, ever.
I think you're casting really big generalizations about men versus women. And I think you're kind of speaking to maybe the virtue of fortitude, where people do, are courageous or do what's right even when it's hard. But I think women can have that virtue.
Men and women are different?
Well, let me just finish what I was going to say. I think women can have that virtue too. So I don't think that there's like an exclusively male virtue to do what's right, or an exclusively female virtue to, be loving or something like this. So I disagree with the broad strokes that you're, painting here. But I would ask you, it sounds like we agree, which is a good thing, that abortion is murder, abortion is horrible, abortion is wrong. We agree on that. And if we agree on that, I guess my question to you, Pearly, why wouldn't you want to fight that? Even if it would only help save one life, wouldn't it be worth it to you to still speak out against it, to still advocate for the rights of those children?
Well, and I think this is what women have a tendency to do, is they think that talking into a microphone saves lives, right? I don't believe the pro-life movement is effective. I think it's easy to take the credit. But I think that women that don't want to abort their kids will find the resources to not. The same way somebody that wants to lose weight will find the resources to not do that. I think if they found your organization, they really didn't want to do it to begin with, because women aren't aborting NBA players' kids or rich men's kids in general. I mean, there's broad strokes, obviously. And I also don't really understand
I think that's totally untrue, by the way, but I don't know where you're getting that from.
Women steal
there was this
condoms.
Viral story. There was this viral story from
women steal condoms, Lila. Women steal condoms, Lila, from the NBA. So this was a problem. This was a problem where they had to issue out statements telling men to throw away their condoms because women were stealing it. I don't think it's untrue that women have a tendency to try to get kids off of wealthy men. If anything, you congratulated Ashley St. Clair for doing that. Exactly. You congratulated her when she was pregnant by Elon Musk's baby, which she planned for years. So I don't know when it's in front of your face how you can deny that happens.
So, well, a couple things. First of all, when it comes to congratulating, you're mentioning Ashley St. Clair for her baby. I think any baby's existence is a beautiful gift and deserves celebration. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing,
single motherhood?
No matter how they were conceived, Pearl, no matter how they were conceived, they are a gift from God and they deserve a right to life and they deserve celebration. But then another thing I'll say is you seem to be continually, doing these broad brush strokes of all women this, all women that, all men this, all men that. I don't think that's reality.
I never said all. I
don't think that's reality. And I think it's really unhelpful to, paint such broad brushes, because certainly there are women that do terrible things. Certainly there are men that do terrible things, but I don't think it's going to be useful ultimately to say all men are this way, all women are this way.
But why don't we focus on the argument instead of, why don't we focus on the argument instead of tone policing? Because right now you're basically saying I don't like the way you said it, which is fine.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what you're saying is untrue. There's a difference.
What did I say? What did I say? Did Ashley St. Clair not try to get a kid off of Elon Musk? Did that not happen?
That's not what I was talking about. Okay, so I was talking about you saying women are all like this. Women always do this.
That's not what I said, though.
Okay,
so you claimed that I said something untrue. So tell me exactly what I said.
The characterization that all women try to do X, right?
I said they have a tendency. I said have a tendency.
Well, I just disagree that all women have this tendency to go after rich men and try to, whatever you were saying, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
Okay, well, what data do you have to prove it?
Well, I can have you meet at least, I know hundreds of women personally that's not how they behave. Okay. So right there, I just, I proved you wrong, because there are many women
I know someone that's not a good argument, Lila. I mean, it might work on the trad people you argue with. That doesn't work on me.
Pearl,
they just
Pearl. So if you're saying all women have this tendency, but all women are not doing that, then I think that is not a correct characterization of women.
Women tend to divorce men that they out-earn. Women tend to marry men and have children with men that earn. Aren't you conservative? Protect, provide. You don't want provider men?
I think that's good. I'm not sure how that connects back to what we were just talking about, but yes, I think it's wonderful when men provide.
Okay. The other thing you said, I said that women...
Where are you going with all of this? Because I am curious if I may ask you another question. You're saying the pro-life movement has, no hope and it's pointless. But I just explained
I said it's ineffective.
Well, you were saying it's ineffective, but I just explained to you that as one example, there were 40,000 lives saved when Roe v. Wade fell. Roe v. Wade would not have fallen without the pro-life movement. So are those 40,000 lives, in your view, they don't matter? That means that the pro-life movement's ineffective because those 40,000 lives were saved.
I believe that those women, if they wanted to have a child, they would have it. And if they didn't want to have a kid, they wouldn't. I think oftentimes people on the internet have a tendency to think and attribute everything to themselves. But the same way that, the same way, like if I was a personal training page, right? And somebody found me to lose weight. If they didn't find me, they would have found somebody else. They wanted to lose weight. I believe that when women, I believe ultimately your actions show what you want to do, not what you say, but what you actually do. So that's how
what would be your recommended solutions to abortion to save lives? What would you do?
I don't think it's solvable, unfortunately. I think women have a tendency to be ruthless. And I've shown women videos of abortions, and with a cold face, they don't care. I've met women that have had 5 abortions. They do not care. Women are very callous and cold. I mean, there's a reason women, even when a kid's born in the first year, if there is an infanticide, I'm sure you know the stat, the most likely person to do it is the mother. The most likely person to abuse a child when it's one of the biological parents is the mother. So women are far more violent than society gives them credit for. They're also the most likely to abuse the elderly. When it comes to killing the innocent, oh my gosh, women are ruthless. I think you could try to logic women. That's a strategy. I don't think it's an effective one because I don't think they care. And the reason I don't think they care is because, I've been pro-life from a young age, like quote unquote pro-life. I haven't believed in abortion from a young age, and it's because I wanted to find I wanted to find the information, right? It's on Google. There's nothing stopping a woman from finding that information, but they choose to not because they don't want to. So I don't see women stopping killing their kids ever. I mean, Pearl, by your logic, let's be real here, Pearl. Mm-hmm. By your logic, you're saying women are so evil, they're going to kill no matter what. They kill their born children too. Let me just finish, please. An eighth of the world population, that's pretty bad. Let me just finish, Pearl. Give me 1 second here. All right. By your logic, we should just get rid of murder laws. We should just get rid of laws that govern the behavior of women because they're so bad, they're going to always do bad stuff. And I would say absolutely not. The law is a teacher. The law does have power. That doesn't mean everybody perfectly will follow the law. I would love for it. I would love we need laws. I totally would love for it to be illegal. If it was up to me. Okay, well, good. I'm glad we agree on that much. We would agree, but it doesn't mean that I think it'll happen. And I think what I often hear conservatives say. Well, help me out, Pearl. I mean, start. Can I finish? So, what I often hear conservatives say is they say the word should. Well, should is just a wish list. It's just I wish that would happen. And anyone that's like run a company or like if I went to an army general and said there shouldn't be war, he would say, wow, that sounds nice. Well, what's your plan? How are we going to end this war in the next year? And he says, well, I think it'll happen in my lifetime. If I was the general, I would say, I don't know if we're going to win this war. That's not a great strategy. And what I've heard just really aren't the best strategies. And I don't know if there is a way to win because women have too much voting power. Well, listen, I think that the kind of argument you're making that it's so difficult, there's so much entrenched interest for why people would want abortion, and so we're never going to get rid of it. You could make that argument about other human rights abuses historically. You can make that argument about racism and Jim Crow. You could make that argument too about slavery. It was certainly there's a huge financial interest for slaveholders. So you can make those arguments about other evils that we have overcome historically. So I think it really is going to come down to willpower. And it's going to come down to a lot of grace from God. I don't think that this is just a, physical battle. This is a spiritual battle too. It's going to come down to a lot of supporting the needs of people and education. And it is going to come down to the law. And so we're going to continue to work. I mean, I'd love to have your support and backing, Pearl. I get it that, you're saying, it's a helpless fight, but we're going to keep crusading and we're going to continue to work. So that's not just 12 states that bans abortion, but that it's 13 states and then 14 states and 15 states. We're going to continue the crusade until every child's protected. If the crusade is an eighth of the world population aborted, I just don't think you're winning. I don't think you're close. Like, that's my point. I wish you luck. I think there's a lot of work to do. I agree with you. Yeah, but I think there's been a lot of victories as well. And we're going to keep working. Well, yeah, I would get a better plan than maybe it's like in the next year we'll achieve this, this, and this. Then you might. We'll keep working on it, Pearl. Trust me. Every day, that's the question of how do we do this more strategically. I mean, right now, the big fight, I'll just tell you, is defunding Planned Parenthood, and I'll explain why. They're getting $800 million every single year from taxpayers. I mean, they're an almost $2 billion group. You look at the pro-life movement, the total amount of resources in the pro-life movement, including all the pregnancy resource centers, you're talking completely is dwarfed by Planned Parenthood's budget, right? $800 million from the government. They get to then turn that money around for their propaganda machine and media, for their political machine in the Democratic Party, for their academia, relationships. They're in the school system. They're doing all of their propaganda in the school system. That's all because they're being tax funded. So right now there's an opportunity really of a lifetime because we technically have the Republicans, right, have power over the House, enough power in the Senate, and they have
the White House that they could defund Planned Parenthood right now. And so one of the big things that we're calling for is get the job done, defund, and try to get all the people who are politically engaged who, would say I'm conservative or I'm Republican or I care about life to say, let's get this thing done and defund. And there have been some defunding that's happened. It's a small amount in the tens of millions. The whole thing needs to be defunded. If that were to happen, that would be a huge step forward for the pro-life movement. And I think that is within the possibility at this time politically. So that's one thing we're working on.
Yeah, I just think there's bigger issues. Unfortunately,
bigger issues. Pearl, what is a bigger issue than the killing of 3,000 babies a day?
Crime, taxes.
What is a bigger crime than killing 3,000 babies a day? It's
yeah,
the leading
but
cause
women
of
are
death
going
in
to do
America.
that anyway. My God, you're not going to take that. I don't believe you'll take that away from them. I looked up the infant mortality rate in the 1800s, and it was very similar to the abortion rate today. I believe that women have always killed their kids. I think it's a terrible thing, but I think a lot of, I don't really see nagging women into stopping aborting their kids as being effective. I hope so, but yeah.
So I think maybe where you and I disagree is I think that people do have the power to choose to do the good, including the women that you have such a negative view of. I think people have the power to choose to do good. And I think we need to urge them to do it. We need to celebrate them when they do it.
A third of women are murderers.
Keep it up.
A third.
And this is for both women and men, by the way. And so I do think that by God's grace, we've been given the gift of a mind to think and a will to choose. And I think it is important to speak the truth again and again, especially in a culture like today where there's so many lies being told, so many rationalizations for evil. We got to speak the truth, and it does convict people. There are people still have consciences, even if they're seared.
Yeah,
and truth does have the power to convict.
But see, this is kind of the difference between men and women. Is women have a tendency to think that speaking into a microphone is going to do a lot more than I believe it does.
Well, why do you speak into a microphone? Just curious.
I report the news.
Why do you do your podcast project? What is your goal? If you think it's meaningless,
to be accurate. And so I think it's inaccurate. I think it's inaccurate to paint women to even say that women are ever going to stop killing their kids when 1 out of 3 women have done it. I just think that's inaccurate.
Just to be clear, Pearl, it sounds like you're saying people's minds are made up. People have their evil natures. They're going to do what they're going to do. What's the point? My question to you, that's
incentives. People follow incentives. That's my point.
If I can just say something here, my question to you is why do you do what you do if you think people's minds are all made up? They're just going to be the way that they are.
Because I always felt like conservatives, similar to you and other conservatives, were inaccurate because they want to be right and they want to push their religion. So it's very important to me that I'm accurate with what's going on.
But what's the point of being accurate if it's not going to make any difference to your point?
What's the point of being accurate?
Yeah, you're
Seriously?
saying, I'm doing this to be accurate, even though it's not going to make any difference because people's minds are made up and they're also evil. So I'm just trying to understand.
I didn't say that they're... Now you do this woman thing. You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say they're evil.
Well, you said you indicated that people have always killed, their babies. People have these bad natures. I think you're referring generally speaking to...
People tend to do what's best for themselves. And if it's in a woman's best interest to kill the kid, she's going to do it most likely. And me moralizing and saying, it's really easy, for me to come on here and say, oh, this is so wrong. Then you look good, right? You get the virtue signal. It's great. But it doesn't change the fact that women are going to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I hear what you're saying, but I think you're wrong. I think definitely people do change their mind. They do choose not to have abortions all the time. Yeah. And I think making abortion illegal also helps a lot with getting women to not have abortions. That has been proven based on the increase in live births in the years after abortion laws have gone into effect. This argument that people are always going to sin. So therefore, we should just legally permit the sin and give up the project of persuading people to not.
That's not what I said.
That's the logical.
I said I'm not a lawmaker.
That's the premise of your
Lila.
argument, though, Pearl.
I'm not a lawmaker. I'm not. My point is, I can't change the laws. This isn't Make-A-Wish, right? This isn't. If I could, I would, but I can't.
Okay.
So,
sure. I mean, I understand you're not a lawmaker, but I don't know how that's relevant to what I was just saying. I mean, it sounds like your position is you're kind of saying, give up the pro-life fight. It's not worth it.
That's not what I said.
Because people are, that's not what you said.
I said you guys are ineffective and I don't think you're winning. Yeah. I don't think you're winning.
All right.
Yeah.
Then how does the pro-life movement become more effective? How should we win? Tell me how to win, Pearl.
I wish I could. I think it's a losing cause because women want to kill their kids. We're talking in circles a little here because it sounds like you're saying, well, it's a losing cause because women are always just going to want to kill your kids. Is that your position? Yeah. You guys are not going to win this one.
And what I'm saying in response to that, the argument that, well, they're always going to do the bad thing, so why try? Right? That argument, they're always going to do the sin. They're always going to do the bad thing. So why even try to persuade them otherwise?
I don't really care if you try. Like, it's not.
Or to establish laws otherwise. I think that's a faulty position to take because I think laws do matter. And I think that people can be persuaded, not all, but some. And I do think what you said earlier was good. I liked what you said about, well, I believe in accuracy. You seem to be talking about the importance of truth. I think that's what you were getting at. I think the truth matters and the truth can convict people. It can move people, not everyone, but many people. And I think it's important to not just work for legal change, but to continue to speak the truth in as many different ways as possible to as many different people as possible, because I do think it makes a difference, not with everybody, but with some.
Yeah, but it's going to be a small minority.
You can think that. It will depend on the person, but it depends on what you mean by that.
We can agree that if a third of women are having abortions, it's really not they're not going to stop anytime soon significantly, right?
One other thing we haven't talked about.
Right? Like, we're not going to drop it from a third to 10% in the next 5 years, let's say, of a women having abortions.
Well, if we get the funding away from Planned Parenthood, they will close a lot of their facilities. And if we get the abortion pill, if not off the market, at least put regulations back on, which is a bare minimum thing. I mean, you shouldn't be regulating an evil pill that kills babies. It should be taken off the market. But at minimum, if this administration claims to be Republican even, or, in support of MAHA, they say they're all about making Americans healthy again. That sounds like a laudable goal. Well, why are you allowing the abortion pill, which is lethal, which kills babies, which lands 1 out of every 20, 4 women in the emergency room? Why are you allowing this on the market? So there are things that could be done politically right now that would be very consequential in saving lives.
They could be, but I wouldn't predict it because women vote. So I don't think the incentive.
This isn't about voting because these people are already in power, Pearl, and some women actually help vote them in. But let me just say one other thing too.
Go ahead.
One other quick thing, too, is, the 14th Amendment matters here. We actually already have a law in our Constitution, the governing legal body for our entire, American project. The 14th Amendment says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So already our Constitution under the 14th Amendment says that every person should be given equal protection under the law. That means that those homicide laws, those murder laws that already exist in our country should apply to babies because they are just as human as you or to me. So I think we need to continue to make these cases. It will influence people as well as we continue to legislate. And this is not an easy fight. I'm not going to sit here and be Pollyanna and say, oh, it's so easy, no big deal, it's going to work out, everything's fine. This is a huge fight we're undertaking, and it's not resourced enough. It needs to be more resourced. But there is progress that is definitively being made, and we are on the cusp of potentially substantial more progress. And I think right now is the time to lean in and keep fighting, not to back down and say, I give up. Everybody's, it's all lost. Everyone's sinful.
I believe in radical acceptance. So I believe in accepting the things that I can and cannot control. So there's some things I just can't control.
Why do you keep talking about women then?
And I believe that women
can't control them, and you think they can't impact them.
I believe you go on these monologues and you interrupt a lot. I'm just letting you know. I believe that women killing their kids is out of my control because they've always done it. I hope you guys make some progress. I wouldn't predict it. That's my opinion.
Well, I appreciate your hope, Pearl.
Yeah. So
appreciate that.
I want to talk about.
I think. Well, I'll just say one quick last thing. I think that it's important that we don't. I would say that saying, well, it's always been this way, it's always going to be that way. I would say if that's our posture, then it might never change. But throughout human history, when there have been huge changes, when there have been huge injustices that have been rectified or overcome, it's because people stood up and woke up and said, I'm going to do something about this. And that's the spirit that drives our movement. And that's what's going to continue to make wins that we've had and get to more wins.
Yeah, I think that sounds nice, but I don't think it's the most pragmatic. So I wanted to move on to the next. Would you agree that women are not... Actually, let me say this in a different way.
Particular stat, but that's horrible if true. I mean, it's all very horrible.
Okay. I don't necessarily think women are as nurturing as conservatives make us out to be. And I think women are far more violent than conservatives really talk about. And the reason I think that is because of the abuse towards children and their inclination towards killing their kids. Would you disagree with that?
So you're saying you think conservatives think women are more nurturing than they are?
Yeah,
I think that women
that men
by
are,
nature.
Sorry, I think men are the nurturing gender, but go ahead.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting theory. I think that men can absolutely be very nurturing. I do think that there's sometimes a stereotype about men, like they're not nurturing, and I don't think that's true. I think women are designed to be nurturing, and it's a very defective society that produces unnurturing women, and that's a big tragedy. It's really sad. And I agree with you that American society, because of abortion, quite frankly, and the sexual revolution, has created a generation of people that struggle to be their natural design, maybe even more than former generations, because we objectify each other so much with pornography, because of the sexual revolution, because abortion and contraception is just right there. It's like, okay, of course I'm gonna have sex outside of marriage, no big deal. Okay, abortion's the backup contraception. So yeah, I agree with you as far as the 100,000 foot view of, society today, there's a lot of defectiveness in the kinds of ways that how we're shaping people.
So what makes you blame society and not women? So, because I hear this a lot, I'm gonna make my case and then you can go. So
Sure,
I hear this a lot from conservatives that it's always the default. Whenever there's a negative trait about women, they always tend to blame society. So if women are choosing, because we have the choice to do anything now. So if we're not choosing to be mothers and we're choosing to be violent towards our children, maybe that's just by and large how women are. Why is it that society is pressuring women to do it? Or society is, I heard you say propaganda earlier. When I was selfish, they just wanted to do other things rather than be a mom. One wanted to be a nurse and one was just crazy irresponsible. I don't think it was propaganda when I see in the real world. I don't think they were coerced. I think they were just selfish people. So what makes you blame society and not the woman?
So I don't know that it's such a binary of, you only blame society and you don't blame the woman. I think, of course, people are responsible for their actions, 100%. And, I would say it's similar to saying, okay, the society is so pornified, right? There's porn everywhere. The average age of exposure to porn is like 7 or 8 years old, right? There's a ton of men who are addicted to pornography. I would say that is in part a problem with our society, right? So you can say, well, isn't it the men's fault they're addicted to pornography? Well, it's also society's fault because we're so pornified and they're growing up in a culture that's so dark and that it, has pornography.
Can we say corn? Can we say corn? Can we say corn?
A moment away on the internet.
Can we say corn just for the YouTube?
I'm sorry. Sure. Corn. Yeah. But do you see what I'm saying? So I don't think this is like, giving special women a pass or giving men a pass. My argument would be our society is really broken right now. People still have responsibility for their actions, but we're making it easier for people to commit vice by having pornography, however you say it, on for YouTube regulations, whatever. But I think that makes it easier for people to commit sin.
Who voted for these things?
You're saying who voted for the sexual revolution and hookup culture, and what exactly are you? I mean, well, you could go look at the history of the sexual revolution. So there's Hugh Hefner, there's Larry Lader, there's a number of, these, Alfred Kinsey is a huge one. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Alfred Kinsey?
Hefner for women wanting to be whores, Lila? Come on.
Well, I don't know that. I think we're maybe talking past each other now, but you're asking me about how did we get to I think you were asking me, it's a little unclear sometimes what you're trying to ask, but I think you were asking me, how did we get to this point where we have all this sexualization in our culture who voted for it? I think that was your question.
I'm saying who voted for
what is your question?
Who wants sex ed in school? Who wants abortion? Who wants hookup culture? Who voted for this stuff?
Well, I don't know that people are voting for sex ed in school. That's not like an up-down vote. So the way it works, if just to look back on the history of the sexual revolution, you had
Lila,
in the
you know what I'm asking.
You had in the
voting Democrat, men or women?
Okay. I mean, both vote Democrat, but are you saying that more women are voting Democrat than men? Is that
in the last
where you're going
100
with this,
years, if only men voted, it would be 100% conservative. Women are opening up their legs to men. So I would say that women are responsible for this.
It sounds like you're kind of taking a posture here because you're kind of acting like, oh, you must think women don't hold any responsibility for their actions. And I don't think that I haven't said that. So it sounds like we're maybe talking past each other here a little bit. I don't know how productive that is. But I would say if we're going to talk about, how did we get to where we are today? If that's the discussion here, like how did we get to where we are? So maybe we can discover how do we solve the problems of the day, right? You can look at it through a lens of, oh, it's all, this particular block of women who are voting left every day, all day long, right? You could make an argument like that. I would want to go back and look even further and say, okay, what are the ideologies, right, that are driving people's, voting decisions is part of it. But most importantly, actually, it's their behaviors, because the sexual revolution wasn't the consequence of voting. The sexual revolution was a consequence of people saying, aha, we're liberated.
I just noticed whenever I say something's like women's, whenever I say something's women's fault, you'll always find a way to like divert and blame it on either society or basically a man. So
that's not accurate, Pearl. I don't know where you're getting that.
Okay, well,
I'm just saying the broad sweeping. What I would say is the broad sweeping generalizations that you seem to be making are not particularly useful in actually diagnosing the problem of where we're at today and how we got here. And if I was kind of trying to speak to the sexual revolution and how we got here ideologically and also technologically, because the advent of the birth control pill, I think, was also a big impetus, quite frankly, for the sexual revolution. And so now we think, oh, sex can be separated from procreation, right? That's no problem. Just have sex. It's not a big deal. Well, sex is a big deal. It can create new life.
Not anymore.
Abortion's being used as backup contraception, right? So I think part of the issue is, the public funding of abortion and contraception via Planned Parenthood is a huge issue that we can fight on a public policy level. And then on an education level, undoing all the nonsense that's being taught about sex and about, human identity. I think that's a big project. Is everybody going to listen? Is everybody going to just do what's right once they learn the truth? No. I'm not saying everyone's just going to listen, but I think it's important to still speak the truth and work to educate people, both men and women. Everybody needs that. So.
Okay, so I wanted to move on to the next topic. So I hear you talk a lot about marriage. So I would love for you to sell me marriage. What benefit does marriage have for men?
Yeah. Well, I would start by saying marriage is not for everyone. So I don't want to come in here and be like, everybody has to get married, because it's not for everyone. I believe marriage is a calling. It's very beautiful. I believe it's for maybe many people, even most people. But, I think some people might have a different calling. So I want to start with that. I think that also if somebody is, maybe because of divorce in their past, meaning they were a child of divorce, or seeing abuse in their household with their mother was abusive, or their father was abusive, or there was neglect, whatever it was, they might have a lot of wounds, right? That makes it difficult for them to imagine a happy life with a family, a happy marriage, happy children. And so I think there's a lot of people like that today. And I would say we need to work on discovering healing, finding healing, because people aren't going to want to get married if they think marriage is miserable, or they think that marriage is just going to end in divorce, or, my parents are unhappy with each other.
So what does he get? What's in it for him?
For just any man, what would be in it?
A 28-year-old Ivy League, let's say he's 28 years old. He's an Ivy League graduate at a law school. I have a friend, 28, Ivy League grad. He's going places in life. What is in it for him to get married? What does he get? I mean,
it's not, just to be clear, if this is where you're going with this, I wouldn't be like, oh, 28-year-old man in Ivy League in Harvard, if I was like talking to him right now, I'd be like, you have to get married. I don't know that he should get married. He might not be his calling. Many of them, I think, will get married. It's a beautiful thing, a good thing. So where are you going with this? Are you trying to say is your position that men should never get married? And I guess women then, no one should get married to each other, period?
I don't tell people. I don't tell people what to do. I certainly don't.
Why are you asking? So you don't have a position on this, you're saying?
I say do what you want. But I hear conservatives.
Well, if you want to get married,
I hear conservatives sell marriage. I believe I've seen tweets from you that are pushing like marriage and getting married. So I'm asking you, if you're going to sell it and push that, what is in it for the man? What does he get? If he says, Lila, what do I get out of a Catholic marriage or out of marriage in general?
Well, let's make a couple important distinctions. You're saying, oh, you push marriage in tweets. And I definitely have talked about marriage being a very beautiful thing and a very good thing, which it is. It's a sacrament, I believe, and it brings two people together in a beautiful relationship that is between them and God, and they can bring life into the world. I think that's amazing. And we need strong marriages for any strong civilization. So I'm going to say that proudly. And, I think that's good to say, but that doesn't mean everybody, I'm going to go say everybody in the world has to go get married then. So I don't know. I don't know what you're,
so you
where you're
wouldn't
going
push
with this.
marriage?
I would say I definitely promote marriage. It's a good thing, and we need healthy and strong marriages.
So if it's a good thing, what does
But I'm not going to say everybody should get married.
Okay,
I don't think that's correct.
That's totally fine, but I'm asking, what does he get out of it?
You mean, what does any hypothetical man get out of any hypothetical marriage? Is that your question?
I gave you a hypothetical guy. So like, what does he get out of marriage?
Well, let's say asking me that to get out of marriage. I mean, if he's sharing this marriage freely, first to put in your hypothetical, I want to make sure he's not like being forced into getting married, because then it's like, don't do it, right? Or he's marrying some bad, if he's marrying somebody who is not a woman of virtue, not a woman who shares his values. But if you're a man and you desire marriage and you're working on bettering yourself, I would encourage you, look for a virtuous woman, look for one that shares your values, look for somebody that you can see her family background, you can see her history, and she's trying to live a good life. She's trying to live a life of virtue. She's trying to, she's open to life herself. She wants to be a mother. She's open to, loving any children you might create. I think, you obviously have attraction for each other. I think those are all beautiful things. And if you're a man considering marriage, you should weigh those things. And then if you were to find a woman like that, get married. I mean, women, according to the men and women, according to the social data, who get married are happier. And men who get married are wealthier because they have a family project they're now working towards. So in that sense, marriage can be a very beautiful thing and a beautiful choice for some men.
Right, but I still am not hearing what he gets in return. So he can make more money.
Well, I just said he often,
so he can
statistically.
You said he
get
can
married, do better financially.
Right, you said he can make more money.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah, you said he can make more money that his family can spend, so he gets to pay for more people. So,
I didn't say that exactly, but that is true.
Yeah,
his family
that's true.
Would be,
which is
would
fine.
Be spending his money.
But,
that's true.
But I just,
there's a lot of purpose in that, right?
I want to actually. I think I probably said it.
But are you aware of the
earlier.
social data about men and marriage, and how men who get married, they do better, typically, not all, but overall, economically. And there's a reason for that. They have a driving purpose in their life where they're working for the sake of their family. And also women who get married similarly, are more happier and satisfied according to social surveys. So both men and women experience these advantages when they get married.
Right.
In general, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but in general.
Yeah. I mean, they can make a survey that says that, but when half of women are fat and a quarter of marriages are sexless, that's not really, what we're seeing. And the average marriage is 8 years. You could like put a survey in front of me, but when every other person's getting divorced, even even so-called conservative women, you could say that. It doesn't mean it's true, right? I think it's a bad deal. I think it's an unfavorable deal to men.
Would you get married, Pearl? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't understand.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
I don't understand what my personal situation has to do with it. I may not, but okay. My question is for men. It's simply an unfavorable deal, in my opinion. And I just would love to hear if conservatives are going to say it's this beautiful, awesome thing. Well, it would be good to answer the question, what do men get out of it?
Well, the biggest thing that men would get, and women get this exact same thing, when they're entering marriage with God as a sacrament. The whole point of marriage is sanctification, a journey to heaven. And so the ultimate, prize of marriage would be heaven. And I'm not saying that, you can't go to heaven without marriage. Of course you can go to heaven without marriage, but it's a sanctification. It's a family, a school of love for you to grow in virtue and grow in love of God and each other.
Right. But you said they can get heaven without it too.
Yeah. If you're called that way, it's not everyone, as I said before, not everyone's called to get married.
Okay. So,
but some are, many are.
Anything else they get out of it?
Well, I mean, heaven's pretty great. Being married to your best friend, I think that's a beautiful thing. Children are absolutely a beautiful gift.
But children they can have now. They don't need marriage to get that anymore.
Yeah, just to finish, I think children are the crown of a marriage. They're the most beautiful gift of a marriage as a child. And yes, you can have children outside of marriage, but I would not recommend it. I don't think that's good for you or the children.
Well, what's the difference?
Well, I don't know your personal experience, but I think
if you just live with someone and you'd stay together forever, what's the difference?
Well, I think that marriage is this public declaration before not just other people, but to God. And it's a covenant where you're promising, for life to love this person, even with sacrifices, exclusively, faithfully, to be open to life. I think that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't believe in cohabitation. I think that's
but God doesn't stop these women from divorces. There was someone in the Catholic, I can't remember their name, but even recently in the Catholic community, there were one of the worst divorces I ever saw was from Michael Knowles' church that he went to in California. One of the worst, most brutal. So God's not stopping these women that want to leave. So how is it? I don't see the difference.
Sure. I mean, I think maybe we're talking past each other a little bit, but some of the, look, we can talk about social data for a minute, right? So social data shows, this is a survey that looked at the happiness of men, their personal happiness, right? And 43% of men who say that they're very happy with life are, and this is men in their 20s and 30s, were married. So the majority of the men who were very happy, or the largest single amount, I should say, of the men who said they were very happy with life or were married. So I think marriage absolutely can be a source of great happiness for people. Not all people, again. I'm not saying there aren't bad marriages. I'm not saying that divorce isn't a major problem. Those are all true things. But I think we sometimes kick marriage like a dog in today's culture. Marriage is so bad and, marriage is worthless. Marriage is useless. I think that's totally untrue. And marriage is beautiful and it's a good thing ultimately.
Yeah, I would disagree because I think it gives the women leverage. And that's why women really like it, is because now they have legal power over the husband. So I think it can really change the dynamic almost negatively in favor of the woman. So
it's an interesting perspective, but
I don't think you can really.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't really. And you said virtue. How can we tell if a woman's virtuous? Right? Her actions. Well, wouldn't you agree? It's her actions, not her words. Her actions.
Definitely, I think that's a great point, Pearl. I think you can best know what someone's going to do, not by what they say necessarily, but how they behave, and their actions do speak louder than words. Words matter too, but actions speak louder than words. I think that's a very wise observation that you're making.
Right. So if 95% of women aren't virgins on their wedding days, how can the guy really see that she's virtuous?
Well, I would say in today's culture, unfortunately, you were kind of speaking, maybe alluding to this earlier, there's a lot of sexual promiscuity. So virginity is rare today. That is a fact.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of making a comeback in some ways. People are saying, hey, it's normal actually to not have sex before marriage. And that's a good thing. I remember, when I remember being made fun of for being a virgin. And unfortunately, some virgins are made fun of for that, right? And that's a really gross thing that our culture might do, or people might do. But I do think chastity and pure love, and at least in some circles, is making a comeback. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I also think people can choose to recommit themselves to a life of chastity, even if they've lived a very rough past. And I think then that happens, that's also very beautiful and good.
Right. But there's nothing like what's in it for the guy to do that when 70 to 80% of divorces are filed by women, 90% of alimony payments are men to women. The majority of child support payments are men to women. The average marriage is 8 years. You know, on average, he gets a 28, 27-year-old non-virgin woman with X amount of sexual partners. What does he get for taking on this astronomical risk? Like, you know, if he has 2 kids with a woman, she garnishes 40% of his income for 18 years. And you don't believe in prenups. You don't even think, I've seen your tweet on that. You don't even think he can mitigate against that. So if that's the case, you know, what does he get?
Well, again, I mean, I did mention some of the social data that men who are married report that they're happier than men who are not. Men who are married actually are more wealthy. I'm not saying
you're attributing the happiness.
If you can just let me finish, Pearl.
You're attributing the happiness to the women. So like they're happy people. Women like happy men. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there's a lot of social data that shows that men who are married are happier. They're more happy with their sex lives. They're more happy overall, you know, report higher levels of satisfaction. Also that they, you know, make more money. Again, I'm not saying that's directly because of the marriage per se, but I'm saying that's important social data to look at because I do think there's some fear mongering today about marriage being so bad. You know, you're just going to get divorced. It's miserable. Everybody's out to get you. It's going to be terrible, right? And I think that we shouldn't live by fear or make decisions based off of fear. We should, yes, look at the data, look at the information. But when we're considering marriage, if that's a desire that somebody has, instead of looking at the broad brush of, oh, there's a lot of failed marriages out there. There's a lot of bad, you know, people doing bad things out there. Instead, look at, okay, what would I want in a marriage? What kind of marriage would I want in terms of a spouse, right? And I think they should look for people that share their values, share their, you know, have virtues. And that is going to be the most secure kind of partnership to build, as opposed to somebody that is not aligned with them, with their values, with that kind of core foundation of what even marriage is, virtue, things like that.
Right. But men, it's not really fear mongering when men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after divorce. I've interviewed men who've had their kids transitioned.
It's horrible.
And this is not uncommon. It's not just a fringe case. This happens all the time with women that are, I mean, we saw what happened to Steven Crowder. He married a virgin religious woman and she painted him as an abuser. So you keep like diverting from the question. I'm just saying if he's going to take on this astronomical risk, which could lead to indentured servitude, which 18 years, 40% of your income, that's a ton of money. A ton, and not to mention reputation. I've interviewed men where the women actually called all of his business friends and ruined his business. I've talked to men thrown in jail. I've talked to men that had their kids transition. This is a huge risk, Lila. It's not really fear mongering when these are real cases and it's not uncommon. So yeah. I don't think it's wrong of me to say that this could happen and ask the question, what does the guy get out of this? What is his reward?
Yeah. Well, a few things. First of all, I think marriage, the greater the risk, the greater the reward, right? Marriage is self-gift. Marriage is an all-in and it's becoming one flesh with someone else. That is a huge risk. It's for richer or for poorer. It's for better or for worse. It's in sickness and in health. And that does expose someone. But there's also this incredible potential for beauty, right? As I was talking about earlier, it's this covenant. It's a sacrament. You can bring life into the world. You can raise a family together. This is the person that can be your best friend, your most faithful companion. And I see marriages like this all the time. Those marriages exist, and I don't think they get enough airtime. We don't talk about how good and beautiful marriage is designed to be and can be. So I agree with you that there is chaos out there, that there are a lot of broken marriages, that there's a lot of suffering, but I don't think that should hold people back to say, well, then it's impossible for me. I can never have a beautiful or good marriage.
So why don't you think women want to get married today?
I think there's a lot of women who want to get married today.
Well, then why don't?
So I don't know. Why don't women do it? You're talking about all women. Who are you talking about? When you say women, you like to say women a lot. Are you speaking about, who are you exactly speaking about? Because it seems like it would be, I think, too much of an overgeneralization to say all women. So what do you mean by women?
Most women don't want to get married when they have the most choice to. The average age of marriage is around 30. So
your
women have the
argument
most
is that your argument is that most women don't want to get married. Is your position?
Yeah, if women wanted to, how do I see what people want to do, Lila?
Well,
based on what
I'm just trying to track your argument here, Pearl. So you're saying
I'm asking
most women. Okay. So you're saying most women don't want to get married, and the way you know that is because there's a lot of unmarried women. That seems like a pretty
that's the choice they make. Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of women who are married, so I don't know where you're kind of going with this. There's certainly a lot of married women. There's unmarried women.
How old are they? How old are these married women?
I mean, all
on
different
average,
ages.
Gen Z only, it's like 10-15% are married. So if you know women under, because I'm the youngest millennial, so 27 and younger, you can't know a ton because statistically the majority just are not married.
Okay, What point
but you had
here?
had a tweet, and I can't remember the exact tweet off the top of my, but I just want to know why you think, you said there's a reason women don't get married. So what is their reason? Why?
So you're asking me why don't some women get married? I think there's going to be a lot of reasons why some women don't get married. There's a whole bunch of hypotheticals we could create here. So, and we can do them for men too. And some of the reasons will be the same, some will be different. But I think some reasons women might not get married is because they feel like it's not meaningful enough. It was just so sad, right? Mm-hmm. They think it's not like going to be a beautiful thing. It's somehow a burden, that having children is a burden. Unfortunately, a lot of women today, not all, but there's definitely women today that see children as a burden. And that's, one of my, projects of trying to speak to the beauty of children, the beauty of marriage. Men are not threats. Men are not your competitors. Men are good. They're good, and they are designed for being in partnership with women. That's a good thing. So, I think. What's that?
Like partnership. We're not equals.
I mean, that may be your opinion, but I think men and women have equal dignity before and as children of God. So, I mean, that maybe you don't agree with that. You would say you have less dignity than a man, or
I would say I have
what's
less.
Your position?
I would say women have less value in terms of what they bring to a marriage and society. Men.
You're saying women
80%,
don't have less value.
Men produce 80% of the world's stuff. I think men are smarter. I think they're able. Women have a tendency to do things in the least effective way possible. And I don't think unequal is necessarily a bad. I don't think unequal is necessarily a bad thing. I think there's hierarchy in the world, right? I think it goes God, men, women, children. Just because the kid has to listen to the mom, it doesn't mean the mom is. It doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. It just means there's a hierarchy.
So just to be clear, Pearl, do you think that women have less value than men, or do women have equal value to men?
I would say women provide less value than men.
Do women have the same value? Do they possess it by nature of being a human being like men? Do they have the same value as men?
It depends to who and what. So you could say to God, but I'm not overly.
Speaking, are they as valuable as men?
I'm not overly religious, but when I look at the value women bring in a marriage, I would say it's less than men.
Do you believe in universal human rights?
I think so, but I don't necessarily know what that would entail. But it sounds like something I would believe in.
Do you think that men and women should have the same basic human rights, like the right to life as an example?
They should have the right to life. Voting, not necessarily. That I don't think. So I don't think there should be equal rights, but should is a wish list. It's never going to happen. So
you think that women shouldn't vote is your position?
I can't argue about this I can't say the answer to that, and it's not because I don't want to, but I got to stay YouTube friendly. But I can't. I want to, but I can't. I just got remonetized. But
wait, I
can't argue that. I can't. I want to, but I can't. But I just really want.
So you're saying you're afraid you'll be demonetized on YouTube for?
I was demonetized for that topic, so it's not an afraid. It's like that happened. So, but I still want to go back to I still haven't gotten to what men get out of marriage.
I've listed a lot of things. I can keep going if you want, but I'll go back to it because I think marriage, again, it sounds like you're talking about a lot of the negative things, the broken things that can happen with marriage, which are all, I'm not going to say that those things, bad things don't happen. They absolutely can happen. And our culture is kind of a mess right now with divorce and all of these other things. I agree with that. But marriage is beautiful. Marriage is about self-gift, and it's about entering into a sacred covenant with another soul, imperfect soul, but another soul who's oriented towards the same end, which is, I believe, heaven, towards God, ultimately. And it's the place where children deserve to be born into. I think that's another part of this conversation we're not maybe having enough, is that kids deserve to be in a household with married parents, with a married mother and a married father. Now, that's not the case, unfortunately, for many children today, but that is what we should strive towards as a society.
That's what the kid gets out of marriage, but not what the man. I keep asking what the man, what does he get?
Well, you kind of dismissed the social data I mentioned and didn't respond to it. But according to the social data, men who are married report the highest levels of satisfaction and happiness, and they also earn the most. So that is an objective data point about how many men, not all, but many men in marriage fare very well.
Right. They earn more, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have more take home.
Well, they're happy. I don't know about the take home. I mean, I think they earn more, and yes, they do have more take home, and they're very happy. They're happy too. Right, it's not just money; it's happiness.
Wouldn't you say that women marry happy men?
I mean,
in general, like you didn't. When you met your husband, you didn't want a doomer guy. You wanted a happy guy, right? So I would discredit that because I think women select for happy men in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I just would love to hear like something. Do they get sex whenever they want? That would be a good selling point. Can they legally get that? No.
Well, I mean, I think people who are married, yes, do have more sex according to social data and report higher levels of sexual satisfaction. Yeah, that is true.
Okay. So what do you think?
Yeah, promiscuous sex is not as great as it's cracked up to be, having a different partner every month and all the issues that come with that. You actually are more sexually satisfied in a marriage.
Right, if she sleeps with you, but a quarter of marriages are sexless. So there's not even a guarantee there. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I was going to buy a product and there was a 1 out of 4 defective rate, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at marriage in through a very utilitarian lens, instead of marriage being about this sacred covenant, about self-gift, and about ultimately, it's a spiritual thing. It's not just, what do I get out of it and what am I doing in it? It's about ultimately a beautiful gift of yourself to another person with all the risks that come with that and the potential for new human life that you can bring into the world.
Right, but if women...
So I would just say, actually, to kind of maybe put a finer point in it for you, I would say if you're a man or a woman, right, and you're thinking about marriage and you're like, what am I going to get out of it? What am I going to get out of it? What am I going to get out of it? And that's kind of the preoccupation. Then I would say, maybe you shouldn't get married. Because if you go into marriage, either as a man or a woman, and it's all about what am I going to get out of this, then I think you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I think that's easy to say when you're the woman and you accumulate pretty much no risk in marriage. I think that's easy to say when you are the beneficiary.
Well, isn't that your point? Isn't part of your point, though, that men should... It sounds like your point is that men shouldn't get married because they don't get enough out of it, right?
I would say it's an unfavorable... I would say it's a bad deal, in that if conservatives want... Like, if you want the babies that you say you want, more people having kids, they're a gift, yada, yada... Well, then maybe conservatives should try to have a better answer for this question.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm giving, I'm speaking towards the fact that social data says that 43% of men who are married say they're very happy versus only 21% of cohabitating men and only 20% of single men. So married men are objectively, according to the social data, reporting higher levels of high happiness. Like, I'm very happy, than single men or cohabitating men. So that's a data point that is important.
How did they survey?
It's through surveying.
Do you think that's really the most accurate way to measure happiness, of emotion that changes every single day?
Well, you ask people, generally speaking, would you consider yourself happy, unhappy? There's a different way that you can conduct that survey. The wife's sitting there.
She's like, are you happy? He's like, yes.
Are you saying the men are not telling the truth in the survey, or what's your position there?
My position is, a lot of people have a tendency, I think happiness studies tend to be bullshit, and it's usually used by people that have an agenda to push. That's my opinion on happiness surveys in general.
Sure. Well, you can have your opinions about surveys. That's fine. But I think the surveys are very illuminating. And I also think that the data about wealth is very interesting, that married men, according to the data, are wealthier than unmarried men. And even if they get divorced, they're still wealthier than they would have been than the unmarried, undivorced man. So I think that's another important data point.
Where is that data from?
That is
Where is that from?
So I don't know if you're familiar with Brad Wilcox, but he does.
He sells marriage. I know his stuff.
What's that?
Yeah. He's.
You don't like him?
No, it's who funds his stuff. So,
who funds it? Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying his data is not
when it's a
correct,
religion. Well, it's when people are selling their religion, right? They have a tendency to.
I don't think he's selling religion, Pearl. I think he's just reporting data about the financial status of men.
But here's the thing, Lila. Men don't want happiness; they want peace. So I think that's the thing. You're equating what women want out of marriage instead of what men want out of marriage. The second thing
I don't think that's true at all.
The second thing,
I don't even think I've used the word. I don't think you're right. I don't think you're.
You don't think men want peace?
My position at all.
You don't think men want peace?
Correctly. No, I think, of course, men. Who wouldn't want peace? I agree that
women.
I'm sure many men want peace, and a lot of women want peace. But I don't think that's the characterization that I'm just talking about women marriage from a women's lens. I don't think that's accurate. I'm talking about social data. I'm talking about men self-reporting that they're happier.
No, that study. Over
40% of men who are married. So you think the men are not telling the truth?
I think that men want peace, women want happiness. So when you're saying that men get happiness out of a marriage, I'm saying, well, they want peace. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying you're equating women want happiness, men want peace.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I just don't think your position that, men should never get married and marriage is all bad is correct. I think that's completely incorrect. I think the social data proves otherwise. Deal. I think there's a tremendous amount of, happily married couples that would prove otherwise. So I think we should stop. I think we should look at the data, of course, but also just look at the human design. I think we were designed for love. I think we were made for love, and love comes with risk. Of course it does. Loving any other person, that person, not only could they do something bad, they could die, they could get sick, they could, they could have certainly messed up. So love comes with risk, but we are made for love, to love and to be loved. And marriage, I do believe there's graces that you get in marriage. Talking about this from the perspective of someone who enters marriage with the lens of self-gift. I'm doing this because I love this person. I want to get to heaven. I want to serve God and other people. I believe there's real graces that God gives us. And, I see this in my personal life, beautifully. I know that's a personal example, but, God does give people grace to live out their vocations. And I believe if someone is called to marriage and they become the best they can be, they meet someone, they have a beautiful relationship, dating relationship, they really get to know them, they think this is a good person that I want to build a life project with, I think that can be an incredibly beautiful and good thing. Then they can bring children into the world. That's how civilization will even stand. That's why we can even have any kind of a healthy civilization. If we have healthy marriages and families, we should celebrate that and support that.
Right. I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's common. And I would say it's been a little disheartening because I was a consumer of a lot of conservative content, right, the last decade, before I was even a YouTuber. And a lot of people with the same talking points you have ended up getting divorced. So it's like even the people pushing this stuff can't keep it together. I hope.
Well, a lot of them are married. A lot of people are married. I know. I mean, yes, there's a lot of divorce. I agree. That's a really bad thing.
I debated.
We're in agreement. There's a lot of people who are married still, and it's very, very beautiful. And I think it does seem like you have made up your mind, Pearl, and at least at this stage. And I don't know all the personal reasons for that or the reasons for that beyond what you maybe shared in this conversation, but. Objectively speaking, according to data and according to both financial data and survey data, there's a ton of married men who are very happy and doing well. And also marriage is a sacrament. I believe it's a covenant. It's designed for more than what I get out of it, but it's designed for what I can give for both men and for women. I think that's a good thing.
I could tell you what gave me this opinion.
Sure.
It's fake.
Yeah, tell me.
It's fake tradcons. Do you want to know what do you want to know what that is? Do you know what that is?
Tell me why you. It sounds I don't want to mischaracterize your position, but it sounds like you're saying marriage is bad. It's not worth it. No man should get married. Is that your position, or am I misreading you?
My position is it's a bad deal for men.
So would you say then, would it be then, therefore men should not get married, would be your
Do you think it's in your place
the
to tell
implicit.
men, do you think it's your place as a woman to tell men what to do?
Well, I'm not going to go tell any specific man you should get married or you should not, because I don't know what he should do. I can say, generally speaking, marriage is good for a lot of people, and it's a beautiful gift, and we need more healthy marriages.
Do you
so you're
think
kind of making it,
do you think
you're kind of moving the goalpost a little bit.
Do you think it's your place as a woman to tell men what to do?
I mean, if you're, let's kind of break that down. Are you saying, I can't as a woman say, we should have homicide laws that stop men and women from killing people? Then yeah, in that sense, I guess I'm telling men what to do because I think we should have those laws. So
in their
I think
house.
It depends what you mean by your,
Do you
I think it depends
it's
what
in
you
your
mean by your
place
question.
to tell men what to do in their house? Do you think that's your place as a woman? I
mean, I would not go around and I do not go tell individual men what to do in their houses. No, unless they're like, coercing bad activities or something. And then I'm educating about the bad activity, saying it's bad. So I don't know where you're going with this line of reasoning here.
If they're doing coercive activities, you're going to tell them it's bad.
Well, I'm going to continue. I mean, you've probably seen my content, Pearl. I'm going to continue to educate people about and work on exposing things that I think are truly bad in our culture, abortion being the worst, and helping people see how horrific it is and reject it. And that includes to men as well as to women. So I'm not going to be like, well, I can't tell men that these behaviors are bad because I'm a woman. I think that would be a mistake. Yeah.
So what kind of behaviors are you telling men are bad?
Well, again, I think it's more like, for example, when it comes to sexual ethics, I've been pretty open with my content about the harm of pornography and the harm of promiscuity. And I think that's a message not just for men, that's a message for women too. So, but
you will tell men what to do when it comes to sexual promiscuity. I saw you do it with Justin Waller. So you're going to tell men what they should do when it comes to porn and sexual promiscuity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, do not look at porn. I'm going to say, do not be sexually promiscuous, and it's for your good.
And that's why I think you're a feminist, because I think that any woman that nags men and tells men what to do is a feminist. And so I would say that I'm against fake trad.
You're always entitled to your opinions, including on your channel, Pearl.
Yeah, totally. So when I say a fake trad con, this is what I say. They use Jesus and religion to make money. They use their kids and their husband. And some of these apply to you, I would say, but some don't. So don't take all of them as. They use their kids and their husband as a way to get clout. So you'll often see the women posting their kids on Twitter. There's pedophiles on Twitter. I don't know why the hell they're doing that. So they'll try to sell me marriage, right? But you're putting your kid on an app for clout that has weird people on it. And you want to say you're in a traditional marriage. That makes me think women, even the conservatives ones, aren't taking it too seriously. And they're using their husband for clout. I'd say undercover feminists tell men what to do and how to run their household. So I think nagging men and their behavior, I just think it's out of place. Who are you to do that? You're a woman. I think it's out of order. 4, using shame, guilt, insult, and need to be right in an attempt to nag men into changing their behavior. They also tend to use this to shame the male sex drive. So, for example, that you guys will say that pornography is like the worst thing ever, but you never criticize women for delaying marriage. Really, the corn problem would be solved if most women married their high school boyfriends. But we choose not to do that.
That's a complete false statement.
I'll keep going. You can respond, but I want to get through all of them.
Yeah.
So they use shame, guilt. You could take notes and then you can go through them one by one.
Sure,
I'll give you like
fine.
2 minutes. So they use shame,
I'll
guilt, insult, and the need to be I read that one. If a woman does something sexually immoral, it's always the man's fault. So what you guys tend to do is, for example, you'll say that the women were coerced. You'll give get out of jail free cards to the women that, did cam work for Tate, but Tate is the villain for making money off of it. Just an example. The fake conservative women, they tend to claim to be pure. So what they do is they have a tendency to say that they were virgins on their wedding day or didn't make liberal decisions. But when I look at their choices, the purities, it's always unverifiable. I can't verify it. It's always I have to believe them. They generally marry after 25. They use the relationship for clout. And generally, the sex, like women on average lose their virginity at 16. So I just have to blindly believe that in a decade you did nothing. It might work on you guys, it's not you, but you guys as simp husbands. It doesn't work on me. Fake tradcon women tend to call themselves virgins, but they have workarounds like backdoor, blowjobs, fingering, etc. Fake tradcon women have a tendency to platform sex workers or former hoes, even without verifying their story is correct. I saw you do this with Nala. She was, even when she came on your show, she still had pretty provocative pictures on her Instagram. Wasn't called out for it. Softball interview. Fake tradcons tend to care more about money and being right than being honest. They have a tendency to get caught in money laundering schemes. They tend to pay themselves exorbitant amounts of money in the name of God. Tradcons have a tendency, Nala did this, to convert when it's convenient, and generally they are not religious before they made money off of God. Tradcons tend to demonize male sin and downplay female sin. For example, a former hoe I said this one. Church is generally the last stop on the whore train, and tradcons make sure it's really easy for them. Conservative women have a tendency to think that they do hard work when really they just talk into a microphone. They have a tendency to tell me they'll pray for me or insinuate, why do you think this way? And it's a shaming tactic to say I'm broken, bitter, etc. They have a tendency to use God as a way to be passive aggressive. They talk too much, they're not hot, and generally nobody likes them. So that's really what drove me away and gave me the opinions I had, was I just saw women that did all of these things. And I was like, if this is who's selling marriage, then God help the men. Go ahead. I'll give you respond as long as you want.
Thank you, Pearl. Well, first of all, I think you are living in this fantasy world that reduces human beings to say that men and women can't speak truth to each other, that we can't, this whole idea, you can't speak truth because it's a man listening. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think men and women need to be at constant war with each other. I think your whole worldview is that men and women are at constant war with each other. We need to just fight each other because we're always going to hurt each other. And well, yes, there's sin in this world and we do hurt each other. There is also virtue in this world. There's also love in this world. Because of God's grace, we can choose what is right. And there are beautiful, thriving marriages. The social data shows us that men who are married actually fare better financially, that men who are married by a large degree report more happiness than men who are cohabitating or men who are single. That data, I think, should give people hope, because there is this push today, not just by your platform, but by others, including on the left. I think the left is actually especially pushing anti-marriage narratives, even more than you or a few people kind of adjacent to the right, saying, oh, marriage isn't worth it, or just do what you want to do sexually doesn't matter, morals don't matter. But I think that the moral path is given to us for our flourishing, and putting sex back in marriage where it belongs is given to us for both men and women's flourishing. And it's also given to us for the flourishing of children, because children deserve to be in a household with a loving mother and a loving father who are committed to each other for life. And that project is absolutely possible, even if you come from a broken background. I know people who have come from extreme broken backgrounds, divorces, cheating, all kinds of horrible things, and they have faithfully been married for 40, 50 years, and they are an incredible testament to the power of saying, I am strong, I can love, I can choose to do what is right even when it's hard, and I'm going to commit to this person for life, and we're going to be in this together and raise a beautiful family together. There are tons of those stories. They may not always be on YouTube channels or on the internet, but there are tons of those stories in our communities across the country, and those give me a lot of hope, as well as, of course, looking at the social data. And I think the other thing that we need to say about marriage here is that marriage isn't just about what I can get. Marriage is also about what I can give. And I think that lens of understanding that marriage is about the gift of yourself for the other person, going all in, helps us understand that life isn't about me. Life is about together serving other people and building a project in care of other people. In the case of a marriage, the children that you might bring into the world. And if we, I think uphold marriage as a beautiful thing, not for everyone. Not everyone is called to marriage. You don't have to be married, I think, to be happy or to be fulfilled, but that it is a beautiful calling for many and even most people, and that we should equip people with the tools to be more happily married by helping them grow in virtue, helping them with things like having good role models, good mentor couples. I think this is where people should really get involved in faith communities, Pearl, because I think it's very hard to, stay married even in a culture like ours. I know you don't like me, blaming the culture. People should take responsibility. Of course, people should take responsibility, but the culture's pretty toxic today. And so I think people need to find faith. They need to find belief in God and a higher power. They need to look at a moral pathway that is designed for our flourishing, and they need to get in community with other people who are living the same way. I think that's really important, because if your community is like just an online community, or your community is people that are just down and out and really upset and kind of always griping about how the world is, and they're not wanting to commit, they're not wanting to love, yes, you might feel yourself pretty miserable, pretty hopeless. But if you get plugged in with a community where there are healthy marriages, there are thriving families, as I'm blessed to be, and I know many people who are blessed to be, I think there's an opportunity for more hope. And you're getting closer to not the dysfunction, but the functional marriages that exist. You can learn from those married couples. You can find married couples that you can say, hi, how did you do it? How did you date and find a good spouse? How did you build this project together and weather the storms together. And then you make faith a part of your life and you pray to God. I do think faith is crucial for all of us, men and women, to ask God, what do you want me to do with my life? How do you want me to live? What's your purpose for me? And I think God can guide you and give you hope and consolation, so you're not living with fear, in knowing how you should direct your life and the decisions that you should make.
You're still listing
one last thing. Okay, actually, I need to say one last thing to address something you said.
Go ahead.
Thanks for listening. You said this thing, you made this comment, you had a lot of comments you made, but the comment about men, are looking at pornography because they're being denied marriage. I think that was largely speaking the point, which is, I think, a crazy point. I think pornography is a poison.
Corn.
Sorry, excuse me. Pornography is a poison inside and outside of marriage. So just because someone's married, getting married is not going to solve sexual addiction issues if someone has them. Getting married is not going to solve, vices that someone might have, right? They will bring those into the marriage, and they will need to work on those, right? So I think just saying like, marriage is going to solve porn addictions or sexual addictions, I think that's actually not a good argument to make.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it's the wife getting fat too. But I
think that's totally untrue, but we can agree.
80% of women gain 20 pounds or more in the first 5 years of marriage. 80%. 20 pounds is a lot. That's a lot of fat.
Well, I'm going to guess a lot of that. I do think there is a lot of weight gain around getting pregnant. And sometimes it can be hard to lose the weight after pregnancy.
That's an excuse. My mom ran a marathon. You guys are soft. But you keep listing stuff. I would still go back to everything you listed was that men should sacrifice for society. So you still haven't listed anything.
Just to be clear, Pearl, men and women. Just to be clear, Pearl, this is really important. Men and women. It's not like, men should be the sacrificial ones and women shouldn't sacrifice. Totally. No, in a marriage, you go all in 100%, the woman and the man. It should not be, I'm going to leave some cards on the table. What are
women's duties to society?
You're saying what are women's duties in a marriage?
Yeah.
To love their husbands faithfully, exclusively, of course, to be open to being a mother. I think that is a duty, and to be a nourishing, loving, nurturing mother. If they're able to have children, of course, some women are not able to have children, to respect their husbands, to try to make their husbands' lives better, easier.
Should they obey their husbands in all things?
Largely speaking, yeah, they should. I think there's a important,
largely speaking, or biblical.
Yes. I think there's an important biblical teaching about submission, and I think the husband is the tiebreaker, and that's a good thing in a household.
Okay, but women aren't having kids. So what are
again, you're kind of painting the broad brush. There's definitely a lot of women that are having kids. Some women don't want kids, and I think that's tragic for many of them.
Statistically not true. If women are having kids, they're having kids in their 30s, which you have a much higher likelihood of having a kid with autism or something else wrong with it. So
how does that relate back to what we were discussing?
Well, I'm asking what women's duties are. They're not having kids. So what do the men get? What do the women have to bring to the table?
Well, I do think it is a duty of marriage to be open to life. So I think if you go into marriage and saying, I'm not going to have any kids, I don't want kids, it's a burden. I think that's an anti-marriage ultimately attitude.
Yeah, and I totally agree, but that's not what women are doing. That's like, again, it goes back to the idealistic and realistic.
Well, but
like,
Pearl, again, I think
what would be nice versus what is, you know?
Yeah.
Men are like, oh, babe, that sounds great. My wife not getting fat, that sounds great. Kid, that sounds great. Sure. A 22-year-old that wants to get married, that sounds great. Where are they?
I mean, I know you don't like to use personal examples. You kind of make these broad brush generalizations, but there absolutely are statistically many people getting married. There are millions of married people in this country. So I don't know where you're going with the point. If your point is that marriage is in disarray, if your point is that it's, can be hard to get married in today's culture, I agree with you on all that. I don't think we disagree on that.
My point is that.
And here's another data point. The fertility rate in faith communities is usually much higher. So you're going to have people who are faith-based having more kids. And why is that, right? The reason for that is they're going into marriage with an understanding of what the purpose is, and they're supporting each other in the beautiful project of building families. Yeah, so that's, again, another reason why faith is such a key component, I think, to everything here, especially with regard to healthy marriages.
My point is that tradcons have a tendency to list all of the things men need to do and sacrifice and not have women do anything in return or little to nothing. Nothing is more important to women than their selfish desires, and that's what they tend to do. So I wish it wasn't so, but that's the market.
All right. I mean, like I said, you can paint as many generalizations as you want all day long about women, about men, and I can keep coming back with data about married men being happier and about married men being, having more financial success, things like that. So those are key data points. I know you've kind of dismissed them. Well, those don't really count, but
they don't count.
I do think that, the negativity about marriage is a problem today. I think that marriage is a beautiful, beautiful, good thing that has made a lot of people, when a lot of people choose it, they build a project together, they bring life into the world. I think without marriages and strong marriages, we're not going to have a functioning society. And the biggest problems in society are because of a breakdown of the family.
Well, right. But that goes to what society gets out of marriage, not men. So you just kind of diverted it. Now it's like, what is society? Well, we get a safe society.
Girl, you are way talking past me, my friend.
I'm listening very closely.
It sounds like you have a script you repeat again and again, and you're not. I don't know that we're talking to each other right now because, I am talking about men that, statistically speaking, report being happier in marriage. They're more financially successful in marriage. And you keep saying, well, you're not talking about what men get out of marriage, but it's like you didn't hear what I just said. Are you hearing what I'm saying?
I would say that the divorce stats cancel out the marriage stats because men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after a divorce, and more veterans have committed suicide than all of the world wars combined. And a good percentage of those were from. That's horrible. Yeah, a good percent were from when the Iraq war happened and they came back and their wife was banging some dude. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely heartbreaking. So, but I don't think that the risk of divorce means that someone should not pursue marriage, especially if they're feeling called to it. I don't think that risks, I mean, you get in a car and you risk getting in a car accident and you risk dying, right? Life is full of risks. So the question is, how will I live my life? Love is a risk. Bringing a child into the world is a risk. Love is a risk. So I'm not going to say, oh, you're going to be so safe, everything's going to be easy, there's never going to be a problem in your life. But I will say, according to the social data, men who are married report that they are very happy, significantly more than men who cohabitate or men who are single. That is survey data with men themselves saying, this is how I experience my life. It's their information, so you can choose to believe it or not. And men are financially, who are married, they do better than men who are unmarried. And even those men who get divorced are still doing better than the men who never got married in the first place.
Right. But I would still say that the divorce rate, when the average marriage is 7 to 8 years, that does cancel out pretty much everything you said.
I don't think that applies at all.
Yeah,
I don't think
I would say that when men
are
9 times more likely to commit suicide, that cancels that out. Women mostly put men on child support and alimony. I would say that cancels it out. I would say when a man has to risk 40% of his income up to 18 years, that's a long time. So
there's also, if we want to talk more about data here, there's also the data about, again, back to the faith communities and people who have faith, people who seek a higher purpose for their marriage, for their lives. There are surveys that show that those that pray together in their marriage and attend weekly church services, the divorce rate can be as low as 2%.
Yeah, I've seen that, but it's a pretty small sample size is one problem with that study. And the other issue is it's taking people
but that's
on the
a pretty good, are those good odds in your mind?
Well, if I thought they were accurate, they would be. But it's, again, you guys always want to push religion, and that's what you guys are selling in general. So what you guys tend to do is you take these studies and extrapolate them like they mean something, but they're very small sample sizes. One, you include Gen X and Boomer women, which were in very different circumstances than the women today, is problem number two. They also included millennials in the divorce rate for that study. So the challenge is if the average marriage. So I'm a millennial.
So you just dismissed. You just dismissed the study about those that pray together and go to church. Well, divorce rates as low as 2%. What's this? You said it's too small as a sample. How big is the sample?
Well, the other issue, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I've looked at it before. The other issue.
So you're just assuming it's too small. I mean, here's the thing.
I'm not.
Listen.
I've read it before, but it was kind of a lot. If you gave me a list before the debate, I could have went through it. But which is fine. I didn't expect you to do that. But the other challenge you have with it is they include, and I the reason I'm saying this is because I want people to be accurate and people to be informed about how they tend to lie to you to push their religion. I'm not saying it's malicious. I mean,
here's something, Pearl.
The challenge is if you include millennial women, you're including people that haven't divorced yet. Because if the average divorce is, it's around 8 years, then when the kids hit high school, if you make it past 25, you're kind of going to make it, but statistically. But they're including people that haven't divorced yet as one challenge in very sect communities. So go ahead.
I'm curious how you see risk, because I think it's like a worldview question, right? So I've been talking about the fact that men who are married are more financially successful than men who are unmarried, and then even men who divorce are still more financially successful than the men who never married. The surveys that show that men who are married report higher levels of happiness than men who are unmarried or men cohabitating. So there's all that data, right? And then there's all the anecdotes. We could talk about that as well. We could talk about faith communities and the divorce rate being low as 2% in faith communities. So we can talk about all of that. But I think what underpins, it sounds like, to me, your worldview is this idea of risk. Well, bad things could happen. In some cases, men, may get divorced, right? And then they might, be suicidal. And there's tons of horrific horror stories out there, right? So I'm curious, like, when you get in your car, like, I don't know if you drive or you walk where you live, but when you get in your car, you are taking the risk. You're taking a risk of your own life, actually, because there are car accidents. I think it's like 1 out of every 100 people are going to get in a car accident, right? So you're taking this risk of getting in a car accident, possibly risking your life, but you still get in your car. So how do you decide? I'm curious. How do you decide how you choose what risks to take? And how do you, do you have a recommendation for how people should weigh risks? Or you're just saying, I'm putting the risk information out there? Men
naturally weigh the risk versus the reward. Had you responded, and I've been asking
you. So do you ever talk about the rewards of marriage, Pearl?
Right. If there were some now, like men 100 years ago.
You don't think there's any rewards to marriage, Pearl?
Are you going to let me finish or no? Okay. So 100 years ago, men got a virgin bride at like 22. They got a young, hot wife that had been with 0 other men, and they got like 6 kids. Risk versus reward. That's a pretty good reward. Today, they get an ex-hoe or someone that says they weren't a hoe, but still marrying around 30. So it's like, bitch, what were you doing the last decade? Don't have to believe you. 3, they also get 1, maybe 2 kids. Half the time it's going to be via IVF. They get she's actually paid to leave you and steal your children and ruin your reputation. And if you start a business, you can take that too. Half the time they don't even want to stay home. So if I think, and I'm just, putting myself in a man's shoes, 40% of my income for 18 years for an ex-hoe that'll give me 1 kid that could be retarded because she's having it in her 30s. I don't know if that's the best sell. And I keep saying, well, what do I get? And then you guys say, well, my study says they'll be happier. And I'm like, well, does the woman stay fit? Does she have to have sex with him? Well, we can't say that. Well, this isn't a great sell. There's no God in divorce court. And I've seen women that were more religious than you, Lila, that did terrible things, god-awful things. Women that aren't on the internet, women that had like 10 kids and married at 22. And they did terrible things. I don't think that's the same thing as a car accident. If I get in my car, every ride, there's not like a 15% chance that somebody's going to ruin my life for 20 years. That's a pretty big risk.
So I would recommend that people look up, those that are listening to the show right now, look up the statistics, the information, the survey data on men's wealth who are married, sexual, the amount of sex people have and how happy they are with their sex lives.
They don't care about money, Lila. They care about their kids.
Let me just finish, Pearl.
They want to see their children. See, this is the problem. You're talking about money before their kids. They want to be there. I think
we're totally talking past each other now.
No, they want to be there from birth till the kid is 18. I know men, they'll spend money. They don't they'll give up. Like, money isn't the end of the world, but it's paying for a wife that's screwing another dude and spending more time with your kid than you are. That's hell. That's death.
Pearl, if men want to have children, if men don't want children, they shouldn't get married. But if men want to have children, the best way to protect their rights is actually getting married. If you are a single father who's not married, the woman that you had the child with you're not married to her, you will have less rights actually for your child. So if you're arguing that, men who want kids shouldn't be married because of marriage being, some sort of a threat to their rights, actually being a man who's not married, having a woman having her child with a woman, you have less rights in that situation.
And he could get more rights with a surrogate if we want to go down that route.
Well, then the child isn't being raised by the woman you love and the mother. So that's a problem. So I think
but then she can't kidnap you can't kidnap the child either. There's pros and cons for everything.
It seems to me that you are recommending,
You keep saying marry these hoes. That's what I keep hearing. Marry.
It seems
man up. That's why
you're very funny.
That's why you had what's her face on, redhead porn star.
Pearl, it seems to me that you're saying that, it's not worth the risk, doesn't check out in the end. You're not saying don't do it because you say, well, I would never tell anyone what to do, but you're kind of, pushing really hard. That's a lot of your statements on the show today.
Give them something, Lila. Give them something in return.
But again, I just say, look up I know we got to wrap here. We just hit the 7:00 button here, but listen, look up the information, happier, more happiness. Yes, men who are married are financially more successful. It is one of the most beautiful things. If you're called to it, you can do it with your life. And Pearl, thank you for chatting with me. It's great to talk.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I wish you all the best, my friend.
You too.
Thank you, Pearl.
Do you want to tell them where to find you if they want to look?
Sure, thank you. Liveaction.org. Join the fight to end abortion and save lives. It's the most beautiful thing you could do is to help save a life, and we get to see that every single day, lives being saved. And then you can go check out my show over at Lila Rose show on YouTube.
I do wish you luck in banning abortion. I wouldn't bet on it, but I do actually wish you luck.
We're gonna work hard and pray hard, and it's gonna happen, Pearl.
All right, thanks for coming on, Lila.
God bless.
Yeah. As I said, guys, when men win, everyone wins. When women win, they tend to win for themselves. What'd you guys think? Did you have fun? I'd have her back. I liked her actually, but if you're gonna come on. If you're gonna come in the kitchen, I'm gonna cook. So I got no. She can come back. Oh my gosh. Good show. Yeah, you guys had fun. All right, if you want to support me, women do ruin my life when I do these things. They send their I don't think Lila seems like a nice enough woman. But in general, they tend to send their followers after me. And doing this stuff, man, it's not for the faint of heart. So if you can, join my members-only community. At some point, you will get to meet me if you join that. And I also bring on the smart, intelligent men that I know. And the occasional woman, but let's not get carried away. The occasional woman to also come on. And it's a one-time, lifetime purchase. And you're basically buying in because we're new. saying Pearl is going to interview people for life. And I at some point, we're going to have some big names where you can actually directly ask them questions. We're still getting it going, but I had a dating coach on there. I have a child support officer telling you how to avoid that. So if you do want to get married, I do give you tools to alleviate risk. I'm going to read the super chats now. I'm not going yet, guys. I'm not going. I got supers. All right. Can we do a poll? Do we think that she's going to come back? I didn't mean to. All right. Let's see. What the hell? Oh, it's because I got to do it on this laptop. I forgot that one doesn't have access to the super chats. Also, if you want to send a super chat for my efforts, people do try to ruin my life over this stuff. They really do. Demonetized for a year. I would have loved to have gone into the voting thing, guys, but right now, all right, 90% divorce rate equals risk. Ask Lila, how does she feel about Christian women who are partly responsible for the rise of OnlyFans and porn because they didn't want to meet their husband's bedroom desires regularly? Oh, that would have been a good question. Crazy. Finance is 50. I'm 30 and fighting an illness through my 20s. Here comes Pearls calling other people an ex-ho with nothing to offer. Yep. Pearl with a knockout win over Lila, the trad thought. Pearl lock-in, just stopped generalizing. Pearl, women aren't having kids because they're dealing with chronic health issues in America. Yeah, health issues from waiting a decade to have kids. Getting pregnant is another health issue. They want them. Kids turn Ted, trade in for new Richard. The tradcons like her and Tommy Lauren can or won't answer what a man received from marriage because they don't believe their husbands should get anything. Lila doesn't care about these points because no one is perfect. Everyone is worth Jesus' forgiveness. All of these points you list can be correct. God will use their arrogance to renew them. This girl needs to read Aaron Clary's book, The Book of the Numbers. Based on her attitude, she won't believe most of the data Aaron researched. Lead me only when I want to be led. Marriage. Yeah, love comes with risk from the man alone. Evangelical feminism, like early 90s baptism. Marriage, positive for one and the advantage. Guys, I'm sorry I didn't do these during the show, but I was trying to lock in. You know what I mean? I just couldn't. Happiness surveys are absolute nonsense and men do not live for happiness. This is a female metric. It is driven by United Nations. Pearl, I sent you an email about high-profile United Nations leak Zoom meeting that exposes their anti-family court agenda. Check your emails, do your thing. Lila believes abortion and murder and says perpetrators should be punished, but wants to give women the get-out-of-jail-free card with coercion. I feel like Lila is a fake tradcon feminist. Greetings to Pearl and... Oh, that was from the last one. I'm going to refresh it. Let me just see if anyone... Okay. Guys, should I react to one more video while I'm live, or should we call it? Doug MPA, you get to pick. Actually, Doug MPA, can you hop on this Zoom? Let's do a post-show talk. What did you think? Doug MPA gives me feedback on debates and that sort of thing. So, I mean, we might as well just do this live because, we were going to talk after anyway. We might as well bring the fans in, I could react to this other thing, but no, we'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll do the reaction, but I will bring up Doug MPA. Let me see the poll. Will she come back? I would totally debate her about this again. Or if she has something she wants to... Not should she, I said will she. Is he coming on? Let me just double check. I'll text him. Get on... Oh, isn't it in the chat? It's in the chat. Just scroll up. Hold on. I'm going to send it. I'll send it. Here we go. Yeah, me and Andrew are good, guys. We're pals. Like, we have disagreements, but, you know, it just...
Hey, can you hear me?
Doug MPA, how are you?
Give me 1 second. Let me turn the YouTube off. I'm good.
How'd I do? You can be honest. Tell the YouTube people.
The abortion thing.
Too long.
I like your stance on it because I agree. It's just people were misconstruing it. Guys, what Pearl is trying to say is you're never going to stop women from aborting children.
Never.
So you only have 365 days in a year, 52 weeks, 24 hours in a day. So you have to focus on things that are actually attainable. In our lifetime, women's right to have an abortion is never going to go away. So there are things that you can affect more than that. I'm sorry. So Pearl is pro-life, but she's just accepted that women will not give that power away. So, but other than that, I think the abortion conversation went on a little too long. But other than that, you just cooked. Lila, she cannot answer. All these trad-cons cannot answer the question: what does a man get? What does he get?
And if you guys are interested, second link in the chat is the GoFundMe for the divorce documentary. We would love to finish if we can get funding. We would love to finish it, but you know, we got to get to 100K. We got 25K, which is really great. You guys are awesome. But if you want, you know, send something there. Go ahead.
Yeah, in the chat says Doug is biased for Pearl. He can't give constructive criticism. Well, one, that is true. I am biased for Pearl. I've been supporting Pearl since she had 17,000 subs. And two, one of the reasons why Pearl and I work well together is I let her, you know, I give her honest feedback.
Oh, he gives me feedback.
Believe me.
We got to fundraise so Doug MPA can come in person.
Yeah, but Lila, you I know your feelings about Lila, and I think you kept it civil. I think that you and her have fundamental disagreements. I think that Lila's a fake trad-con, and one of the best parts about Pearl is a fake trad-con crusader. There are too many of those out there, and Lila's one of them. She's nice, but you didn't go over the $14 million for her nonprofit.
Oh, I wanted to, but there was, you know.
And only like 85,000 of it went towards lobbying, and like 14,000 went to donations, and she kept the rest.
Oh my God, she kept that much?
Yeah, according to the tax documents.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, I went over them. Well, should I say allegedly? I don't want you to get in trouble. Yeah, I'm gonna say allegedly just in case, but I looked over the doc. Anyway, yeah. So, but Lila just keeps saying, "Marry these hoes, guys." All the trad-cons, all they can say is, "Marry these hoes. It's your duty, and put society and women over yourself." And also, she kept saying that whole equality debate. I don't understand how women can be religious, but then say that men and women are equal when men provide more value. Yeah, so she tried all the trad-con typical techniques, but she got nothing. Guys, Pearl will never tell you to not get married, but you gotta consider, because look, guys, all of us red pillars, we can say, don't get married, but most guys are gonna get married in my lifetime. Sorry.
But if you acknowledge you're taking a bad deal, then you can figure out, then you can prepare accordingly.
Yeah. You can mitigate risk, and then you'll know exactly what happened, not if but when she leaves you. Because now you can prepare. 90% of college-educated women divorce their husbands. 90%. Come on, guys.
Yeah, like if you guys are a 30-year-old guy and you want to get married, then by 40 you can go for your wife number 2.
100%.
You can plan. You could be like, oh, you know what? The 30-year-old didn't work out. Now I can now at 40. I feel like 40's got to be easier dating as a guy than 50. You guys could tell me, but I just imagine at some point you got to age out of the 20s-year-olds. Is that true or no? I don't know.
Well, they say that guys between the age of 42 and 50 are the most desirous men in society, period.
Well, do you know what I was thinking, though? I think they're going to get them, and I don't know, this is hypothetical. You guys would be able to tell me more, but I see men getting the most matches in those age groups because they're matching with like the 30-year-olds, the 50-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, and some 20-year-olds. But if I had to guess, like the women between 0 to 30 are still going to match the most with guys in their like mid 30s to 40s rather than 50s. But I could be wrong. You're on the app, so you tell me. And like you have guy friends around that age, I'm guessing. So
yeah, I would say 25-year-old women don't go past 40. 30-year-old women don't go past 45. 35-year-old women don't go past 50. So I think that there's a 15-year limit for each age of the woman.
Yeah. There's exceptions, obviously, like Leonardo DiCaprio and like whatever. Yeah. But just like in general, that's what I've seen.
What is this whole virtuous women thing? Guys, in the chat, help us with this virtuous woman thing. What does that even mean? Because here's the thing. Women are rewarded for acting without virtue. Mm-hmm. And what can keep a woman virtuous? Even if you marry a virtuous woman, what can keep her virtuous? Nothing. And if she stops, because remember, virtue is based on actions. You have to, your actions have to be virtuous. Women are rewarded for actions that are not virtuous. So this whole trad con, oh, you get a virtuous woman. Oh, really? Where and for how long? Right?
She's virtuous right now. Just curious, why don't pro-lifers advocate for a ban on divorce after marriage produces children?
Yeah.
They just want to make money and virtue signal. That's generally what I've seen.
Yeah.
There are some people that really care, but you know, you could care at like 50 grand a year and they never take that money. You know? They can make sure every cent goes towards these children and they never.
Yeah, it's just Lila, Tommy Lauren, they just can't help the feminism, man. What did Andrew Wilson say to Tommy Lauren? There's that feminism. It always rears its ugly head, man. When pressed, tradcon women will speak the same talking points as feminists. And what do I always say? Why fake tradcons are worse than the feminists? Nature makes its most dangerous and poisonous things a weird shape or a bright color. So feminists usually have purple hair, that septum piercing, tattoos, so you can spot them easy. But these fake tradcons, they don't look like that at all, so they're hard to spot.
Well, yeah, I agree.
So if you were to have her on again, what would you talk about the next time?
I just enjoyed cooking, to be honest. Maybe the embezzlement. I mean, if there was ever something in the news, I totally would have her on. Like, if something that's like relevant in the news, we had a different take on. If she wanted to come back, she totally could. I don't know. I don't think she will. I think I cooked too hard, but I don't know. Maybe she will.
Yeah, I once you talk to one of these tradcons, you talk to every single one of them. It's the same arguments. Guys, let me know. Put a 1 in the chat if you knew where she was going before she even said it, or put a 2 if you heard anything new tonight. So put a 1 in the chat if you heard every single other fake tradcon argument, or put a 2 if you heard anything new.
Nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you did, especially you and her vehemently disagree on certain things. It was civil, I just, once again, she has nothing. All these tradcons. Guys, just marry these hoes. Just do it. Men are supposed to be hack mules for women and society. You're supposed to get nothing out of it. And how dare you ask what a woman is going to give you back for sacrificing your emotional, mental, spiritual health, monetary health for a woman? How dare you ask that? How dare you?
Yeah.
Typical TradCon garbage.
Typical. Guys, make sure you hit a like on the way out tonight. And thanks so much, Doug MPA. You got any final thoughts?
You need to do this more often.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll do Debate Wednesday. Who do you guys want me to debate next? What TradCon woman?
There's so many. We need to look up all the different women that have done hit pieces on you and actually reach out and see if they want to come on.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, leave a comment if you have someone you want me to have on. Thanks so much, Doug MPA. And
yeah, this was a great time. Let's do it again soon.
Cool. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Like the video on your way out. Subscribe. And tomorrow, I'm going to react to that Megyn Kelly thing you sent me. Oh, that's going to be hilarious.
The Jordan Peterson, because that's like an hour long. Yeah. So you should just do a full